Let's call the meeting to order. This meeting and all other meetings of this committee are open to the public. Proper notice has been posted and given to the press in accordance with Wisconsin statutes, so the citizenry may be aware of the time, place, and agenda of the meeting. Roll call.
Gunderson,
Here.
Nadowski,
Here.
Brenner is absent.
All right. I guess I'm looking for a motion to approve the minutes from the November 10th.
Make a motion to approve the minutes from November 10th.
I'll second it. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Carries. Citizens' appearances. Everybody's here for the garbage, correct?
Yep.
So let's just move into the discussion and possible action on the garbage and recycling quotes.
I give them a couple minutes each to
Absolutely.
speak on that. I know we mentioned that at one of the last meetings.
Yep. Sure. So I don't know, you're in front, you might as well go first.
Defer to me, oh boy. I was like to go last, but I'm not gonna follow up. But here's what I'll just give you here. It just is the same as comparison to what you had here for the other. It'll kind of follow along. My column will be like this and whatever, I guess, so.
Okay.
What I did was just pulled out the containers that the city had there. That was for the city's recycling. Actually, to be honest with you, I think I have that here. Actually, I have 2008's at Cheryl. I don't know if Cheryl was here, but this is what we had and I pulled out. This is what I'm gonna keep that, but this is what the
Sure.
containers we had.
Sure.
And that's what price I did pull out of there. And that's what I did with what we had for the sewage, the city hall, and that was the numbers that we had. So there's no tricks, there's nothing here, like it's all here. But, that's, so we have that. So that's what I did, I pulled it out. That's my figures, I'm still a little higher on that, I believe it's 872. But my recycling is pretty good. Actually, there's an option on there, maybe my constituent would probably agree or whatever, but there is a rebate on recycling. I would be, right now, I'm getting that rebate, I'll be honest with you, I didn't know if you knew that.
Yeah, I assumed it.
Oh, you did?
I did from my
Patrick, you're.
prior employment, yeah, knowing how this
Okay.
kind of works, yeah.
But if I give that rebate back to the city, which
Yeah.
I'd say on that second page, that would be the numbers. There's the second thing there with the rebate out of recycling. And actually, the numbers come out pretty darn comparable, or even pretty good.
Is that a changed proposal from what was initially put in the first time?
Not
I mean,
really,
because that's not right then.
not really changed. It was a change that the proposal says, and I read it over, was for the city, but it didn't say anything about the city containers for the sewage plant, the parks, all that other stuff. It says a residential proposal. And I took out just what they showed, what I had billing them for that. I
But
didn't-
at that other meeting, though, Lynn, you said you did that service for free, and Patrick was here and he heard that too.
By Cheryl, I got the letter from Cheryl, how we came about that. What she did, she wanted to do was to have that, for whatever reason, she wanted us to put us in together into the pot and just take that per resident. And I do have that letter, that's what we did. So we took all them numbers that I just showed that I pulled out of there.
Well, this sounds like, this is shifty.
It's not, it's.
Yeah, it's shifty.
No, it's not shifted, the numbers are just pulled out for the containers, that's all I pulled out for.
The initial request
And
though
my
that
bid
Patrick
is
sent
still higher.
out
It
was
was
the proposal
$8.72.
for the whole city, and that's what it was. It specifically just said for the city, for the residents of Weyauwega. And so whatever you submitted, that's what you got to submit about the first 5 period.
For the city of, why we.
I think what we
You
would
can
probably
keep that, I
do,
have-
if you wanna
Well,
cut
I
'em,
just-
we'll probably send
I
it
thought
through
it
to the
was-
city attorney to review anyway, but
Pretty significant difference, so.
Yeah, that's
Pretty
not right, because he already saw my bid, and then he can reduce his, and I was lower to begin with anyway.
You're still lower. You're $8 on, I'm $8.75. I'm higher than you are. We're 872, what is it, 872.
So,
I'm
What's his final price for trash and recycling then right now?
5-year,
Well, there's two options.
just for year one.
The year one would be $8.72.
That's trash and recycling?
Nope. $2 is the same as what I did before, and the $8.72 is for the thing, and it comes, that's what it would come to. The total is $10.72.
Yeah. I'm still lower, but it's still not right what he did. I mean, that's, the request for the bid was for the residents of, or for the city of Weyauwega, and that's what you submitted the first time.
I could tell you, we can check the numbers, but either way you go, we're probably gonna have the city attorney review it anyway. It's up to you guys. I mean, what you probably don't want is debate back and forth, but I would imagine
No.
you guys had more to speak on
That's
too,
not
right?
the
No.
point of it, though. I mean,
No, I gotcha.
I get you too. I'm,
That's not the point. I mean,
You're
the point is,
100%
year
correct.
one, I'm still lower, you know. But it's still not right that I'm coming with new figures.
So can you explain again how you got to these then?
oh, I got to that.
Yeah,
Took out 63 cents per resident, which was what that came out to what all the containers with the sewage plant, we pick up twice a week. Mondays, no, Tuesdays and Fridays, it's the 6-yarders at the, city park, that's twice weekly in the summer. The containers by the city hall, toward the recycling and that. That's what I pulled, that's what I pulled out of the bid, the household, that, then it comes down to that for your household bid.
so, and I have to check a note here. So we were paying for these other pickups then? I know the library gets a bill for it,
You
but,
were paying for it in a roundabout way. When your predecessor had that, I had a bid, and I got that number with here. And she says, why don't you put that all in there, and then let's just prorate that 12 months for the citizens.
and you said you have a document with that?
I might have a copy of something that Cheryl and I talked about. I think I may even have a letter that she sent me. I don't
Okay.
know, but I'm sure I have something like that.
Yes, from my perspective, I don't know that I'm comfortable moving forward on anything till we find out what the numbers are gonna be that we're looking at. And right
Yeah.
now, I think
no,
I
I-
feel good about the situation.
I don't feel good for now. Do you have a copy of the RFP we sent out, taking quotes for this?
I'll have to pull it up on here.
Because I'll be honest, I have almost no tolerance for changing quotes.
For what?
I have almost no tolerance for changing figures.
Well, see, that'll rebid it, I don't know, I don't really care. We got a
No need.
proposal.
I don't think you need to read, that's why I want to see a copy of the letter that went
Yeah.
out.
I don't know, we can take a look through the files.
And was it the same letter that went to every waste management company?
The letter we're looking for was
Yeah.
probably way back from,
It went to, everybody got
oh,
a
you're
copy.
talking about the
So it
one
would
this
have been
year?
a standard form letter where the expectation was. the
Oh, what we
same
looked
for-
for was residential, and like they had mentioned at the last meeting, that there's other services they provide. They weren't a part of this at all, but good news is we filmed the meetings, I mean, we can check on that stuff too. If you've got, maybe you wanna have them both kinda give their presentation, I'll be looking at the numbers here real quick in those
Okay.
documents.
Sure, I'm just,
That way it's, kinda keep it moving anyway. Now, at the end now, you don't, the options you guys have, you have two haulers that are here. Obviously, you're down a member. I mean, if one would go with one and one would go with the other, either you can keep it here for a month. You can keep it here for a month anyway. You can ship it to the
Well-
council without a recommendation.
well,
It's up to
let
you.
me hear from them,
Yeah, that's fine.
and then we'll see what happens.
Yep, that's fine. Either way, all the documents we've got, this, any letters that come out, I mean, they're all going to the city attorney before any decision gets made, even if you made a recommendation tonight, you know.
Well, that's
So either way, it's not,
the way I'm leaning. You know, and maybe right now I don't even need to hear from anybody else except to table this and have all this stuff taken to the attorney to look at.
probably let them finish if you want. It's up to you. In case there's anything else that needs to be considered.
Go ahead.
I'll tell you about Harder's. My name is Nick. I'm with Harder's Fox Valley Disposal. We are a family business. The Harder family started and still is over 50 years ago in La Crosse, Wisconsin. They came over to the Fox Valley area about 6 years ago and brought over the same principles that worked for them for 50 years in La Crosse, which was provide an excellent service at a fair price. The past 6 years here, our business just exploded. We service now nearly 60 communities where we service the entire towns for trash and recycling, from the sizes of 10,000 households down to 50 households. When we have a contract that comes up for bid, we don't lose it. We ask, for if we want 3 years or 5 years. We got towns that ask, they want to go 7 years. So it's a testament to the service that we do provide for the company. We provide our drivers with a decent living wage. We have profit sharing, 401k, insurance, and we provide our drivers rather well. So, I could go over a lot of stuff on two here, but our initial bid is lower than what you guys are actually paying right now for the same level of service. So which means a savings for the town. And if you guys are charging $13 now, it's even more that you can even bankroll into that account and save. And we're open for, we really have no investment. If you guys are using your own containers for trash and recycling, we don't have an investment in here, so, we're open for, 1, 2, 3 years, it doesn't matter to us. I know Patrick pushed out the numbers on that one sheet that you guys probably have there too, and, we put up to a 3-year CPI. That doesn't mean it's gonna be, or 3% CPI, doesn't mean it's gonna be 3% every year. We've had a year where it was 1.5%, so. But within the first 3 years, based upon those original numbers that you have, you realize the savings for the community for the first 3 years. Which is almost a total of $13,400. Besides the money you're gonna save every month, above what our rate is for the $13 that you guys are charging.
I'll read this paragraph on the scope on the RFP. You go ahead, you can read it if you want. Top number 1. That kind of helps anyway to clarify.
Allowed?
Sure.
Okay, scope of the project. This contract will be administered by the city administrator Patrick W. Wetzel. This contract shall provide quotes for weekly curbside refuse and multiple options, weekly, bi-weekly, monthly for recycling collection for single-family homes, 1 or 2 units, and mobile home. The contractor may also be requested to collect garbage from dumpsters at Weyauwega Community Park, seasonal, and garbage and recycling at City Hall and the Weyauwega Public Library weekly for an additional cost. The contract price will be based on the number of residents being serviced, with a lump sum included for municipal locations. The city currently has roughly 646 residential properties to be serviced by garbage and recycling services. The proposal should include a line item for material disposal fees of backflow. The city will have a contractor pay these fees and include these costs in the monthly rate for garbage and recycling. So,
So the way we had it in there was that it's residential, we're looking for the
Yep.
rate. And then a breakout of a lump sum for those extra pickups. Now,
you're right.
I don't know, did you have a sheet that showed what the costs were on that? Because on the sheet I've got,
I'm kinda looking for that sheet, it's the same sheet I read it, you know, it's,
but the sheet that you just had that showed the amounts for the different pickups, you know, for like at City Hall, I think you had a dollar amount, right?
yeah,
Or did I
that's
just see
$2
something?
on there, yeah, right. That was in 2008, I have this, I was trying to look. Yeah, I still got that. But that,
On top.
Yeah. I prefer to wait for an attorney to look at it all.
That's fine.
So
I do have it here.
that's what I'd like to do is the table and have the city attorney look at all this stuff.
I agree.
The idea, you know, the proposals that were sent in, the idea with your final action, if you get to one, was not to approve a contract, whatever your action would be to recommend entering into a contract
With
with
one of the other.
whoever. So I mean, the city attorney, you were gonna have to bring in at some point anyway.
Yeah.
I would check on this. For sure, we're gonna have them take a look at it, because if the numbers, these are different numbers than what we had ahead of time, you know,
Right.
and then we'll have Jim Kelly take a look at it and see what he thinks on. I mean, we can have him take a look at it this week. It's up to you if you wanna ship it to council next Monday night without a recommendation right now, or if you wanna hold it another month. I mean, it's up to you guys.
Does the board wanna make a recommendation?
Is that a recommendation, do you think that this would just get bounced around and get kicked back anyways? Because I don't think we can make a recommendation at this point. 'Cause there's a lot of question marks.
It's up to you guys, whatever you feel comfortable with.
What I noticed is gonna be a pain. Let's hold it and let the city attorney look at it. Now, if you get it done before Monday, if he has a chance,
Yeah, I mean, it'll go to him tomorrow.
well, that doesn't mean he'll get it back to you right away.
Right, right.
What is it, if I may ask, what's the attorney, what's he gonna look at anyway, exactly, just because it's changed numbers or what?
That'd be my main concern.
I would think,
I mean, because realistically, there was a
Right.
deadline on the initial numbers, you know what I mean? To put them in, and that's what was submitted.
I mean, in fairness to both companies, I feel we should be looking at the numbers on the
We should
original
be.
sheet.
We should be. You're absolutely right. The initial numbers.
You make a recommendation from that.
Be my guest.
I would recommend that we make a motion to forward then Harder's as our recommendation to the council for approval.
And I'll second it. All in
And then,
favor?
so,
Yeah, granted, you're still gonna have the attorney look at it. So we'll go in with the recommendation, I'll let council.
Because in fairness to both companies, I think we have to go with the numbers that they both had the opportunity to quote based on the same criteria.
Hang on there. Do you have any specific instruction on what the city attorney's taking a look at all this week?
Well, you want
I
to,
suppose, I mean, what you guys make here is a recommendation, moves to council, it can be kicked back, tabled, reversed.
we'll
Whatever
just
you
go
wanna
in
do,
with
do you want me
something.
to have him verify which figures
Yeah.
you're going with for
Right.
Gracia? I mean, you've got Harder's numbers.
Right,
I think based on what we know we can look at, which are these numbers, Harder's would be our recommendation to the council. Now, if something were to change and this, you know, is, I guess, legal, it may change, you know, the thought process a little, but I think we have to base it off what was submitted by the deadline based on the requirements that were put out to the companies. Otherwise, I don't think we're practicing fair business with the companies that are trying to support our city.
I agree 100%.
And I think we need to be upfront and honest with our dealings with our
Right.
vendors that we're using, otherwise, nobody's gonna wanna vend for our city, nobody's gonna wanna help our city.
I agree, I don't like changing numbers. But I would be interested in seeing that letter from Cheryl.
Well,
Yes.
like I said, these were the numbers from 208. These are the numbers. I just pulled the numbers out. I understood that. I asked, was he putting the other ones into there? I don't know. Cheryl just says to bring the letter in. I did have it here. I can look at it or email it over to him, but, I mean, that's what I pulled out, and I just took that out of there. I assumed that we didn't have the debts in 2008 even.
Sure,
too,
oh yeah.
Plus, that was some stuff that ain't even in there. We pick the sewage plant up twice a week, that 2 yard down there. And he's gonna do that on Tuesdays and the Fridays. With AgriPower, we've been doing that once a week, and we've had no increase in our prices. I live in this town, I had a business here for 18 years, had a barber shop, and I have property here, I pay sewer and water. We've had any calls, we come right away and take care of them, but, you know, I mean, it's, nothing there. That's all I was pulled out, everything else is the same on that thing, there's nothing there, but, I mean, if he wants, I mean, that's the thing, but, so I guess, on the letter, yeah, she did put that in there, I know that. In fact, Becky was part of that, I think, understood that. That was
That's
part of
fine.
it. So,
But in the proposal, we had to break it out on the side, or what you're saying is that those rates are still good though?
rates
On
are
what you've
probably-
got, can I see that letter? I'll just take a picture of it so I get a copy of it.
Probably, did I leave that letter up either?
No, you put it away,
I can email it to you.
if you could.
Because these are 2008s. I mean, this is.
No, yeah, well, the whole contract was 08, so yeah, we understand that it would
These are
change.
14, I mean, there's.
Can you run down those numbers real quick for me? Just read off them real quick?
Well, here, I'll give them to you.
Just the rate, I mean, it's fine. Or I could take a picture of the letter and then,
Here, I didn't give that to you.
no, you grabbed it.
But,
What's the month that RPF went in?
August.
August.
It was due in August. Well, it was due in August.
Yeah, so we probably went down.
We used to bill the city directly, but then we.
I know the library gets a bill, but they're kind of
That
a,
is the only one,
Yep.
yes, you're correct. I didn't leave it lay up there.
no, you grabbed it.
That's funny with that.
I think it said November 10th, 2008 on the
Yeah,
top.
I've got a lot of stuff, we're going back to.
I got a lot of paper with me
back
too.
in the 90s here. Goes back a long way, so that's. if I can find that letter from Cheryl even in here. Oh, that's funny, it just had that letter too right there. That shows in the figures. Oh. How could it disappear that fast? That's for the back, maybe. Here it is, right here. It's 2,000. Yeah, we do have more charges. Have to, the sewage plant is different, that's for
Sure.
sure. If you wanna take that.
Get the whole thing in there.
I could email that to you tomorrow too.
Yeah, that's fine.
If you want me to.
Okay. So you have a motion to recommend Harders. What I'll end up doing, unless you tell me otherwise then, the information that's here, I'll run it by Attorney Kelly and have him give a recommendation on, what number are you comparing to? You know Harders' number,
Right.
on whether you're comparing to this or the original one. Just, I have a feeling I know what he's gonna say, but I'll make sure that he gets that out for you guys, so you've got it. Okay?
We have a motion and a second for.
Yeah, we do.
Harders.
You do.
So we
You
just
do.
have to vote then.
Yep,
Yeah,
yep. So unless you're done, if there's any other direction you want me to check out with
no,
what we're considering, I mean, the big thing was, we put May, we knew that we'd have to pay for the other things, and
Right.
if we were with Gratian already, maybe not getting a direct bill, but there's still a cost there. I don't think, I guess the question I've got for you guys is, the recommendation here is to move forward on residential with Harders. Now, you're not making any motion on any of the other, the treatment plant, city hall, the park.
correct.
The intent, I'm assuming, is to stay with Gratian on that? We didn't shut that out at all, but
I guess we don't have.
Well,
any
in
numbers.
essence, you did ask for separate numbers on that.
we said we may require that.
Cool.
May, it was, the big numbers we're looking for were the residential, because that's what's tied in with your garbage fee.
I guess that would be separate for maybe the next meeting if we had those numbers in front of us.
Yep.
We could look at that then.
Yep,
And that's what my stance is, that an RFP specifically spells out residential, period.
Yep.
And that's what we both went on
Yep.
until my numbers came in better, and then things changed. It changed halfway through that meeting, and then now they've changed on paper. So, a couple 96-gallon containers in a park or behind City Hall or anything, that means nothing to me as far as, that's nothing if I threw it on the truck. So, and the treatment plant too. I mean, realistically, our main goal is the city, but if it came down to having to pick up a couple other containers, that's really nothing. So
We'll talk
Well, it'd
about
be something to a resident who's paying taxes and,
Well, and
for
finding
garbage
out
pickup
how
and
it's
then-
Be lumped in with that cost too, that's another good point.
so. I guess right now it is just residential and we'd be looking to bid out the, city services.
Anything else?
yeah, I
that's
mean,
left
with
over?
that dollar amount too, we have to take a look at what the dollar amount is. That dictates what the process is too. It might not have to be a full-on verbal, written quotes, whatever it is.
No, it wouldn't be, but it'd still be open to people to,
Down there, aren't you?
Oh, yeah, yep, I am.
That's not a little, couple toter carts down there, and not a one man, you'll have one man on the truck. We can't push that with one man, we have to wait.
Yeah, I've got a picture of it on my phone too, I was there the other day.
That's a pretty nasty deal down there, but that's a trial, pretty good deal, that's the hard deal. That's a hard deal.
So would I have to amend my motion to clarify the residential piece, or is that just assumed in this
that's
case?
assumed in the RFP.
Right,
Okay. So we just need.
that's what they're talking about.
Oh, I know what they're,
You've toured the plant.
I've been
We've
down
gotta
there.
get through there yet, but
yeah,
you can show him too if you want.
Sure.
Yeah, if you don't mind.
Basically, it's a rake,
yeah.
pulls out all the solid,
Yeah, let's set them in one then.
All the good stuff.
With Agapar, they say it's not gonna get better,
they got a lot of flow coming.
hopefully, but that's,
Okay.
So your recommendation is just on residential.
Correct.
Correct.
And you're okay with what I said about going to Attorney Kelly, getting his, I'll have him give you something in writing?
Sure.
And that way you know what are you considering this?
And that can
What do you
always,
consider?
could
Right.
that always be brought up then if there's
I'm
any
sure it'll be
change?
Oh, it will be.
It
Yep.
will be brought up.
Yep.
Good.
Yep.
For discussion before we take any formal
Oh, yeah,
action, is
yeah,
all.
we wouldn't, yeah.
No, it will be.
Perfect.
Will you then notify Patrick, as far as what the attorney says, or is that gonna be at another meeting, or?
It'll get brought out in open session to the council meeting Monday night.
That'll depend.
And I don't know if he's gonna be there, but I'll get whatever he's got, it'll be in writing.
Yes.
Yes.
We can tonight.
Yep, the 15th is when the next council
6
meeting
p.m.?
is. 6:30, 6:45. 6:30 is usually when it starts, but we have a couple special meetings up in front of it,
Okay.
so. Anything else to discuss
Other than
on
ask,
that?
to
Go
on
ahead.
that, other than asking if he's interested in the bidding out of our city services.
I would say because of the dollar amounts involved, it's a different process. And
Imagine it's pretty minor in the big picture.
That would,
Oh, it is.
there's a cost to it, but it's not, we've got tiers on what the authority is on who can run the process. Some of them I can run out of the office and then report back to you. Some of them, like this, is a pretty big deal.
Yeah.
Has to go out to you.
Yeah.
Because they hadn't submitted anything ahead of time, I would just say, we'll address it, we'll get to it,
All right,
okay?
good enough.
I would just say that contract for him to start.
The motion, if there's an action next week, it would be to enter into a contract, and because of the legal firm that we have now, some of the contracts we've had in the past, even if they've been real basic contracts, there's been a lot of time where our attorneys reviewed it and then suggested a new contract. I would probably defer to him and check with him. He's got a copy of our contracts now, just to see, you know, even if we would renew the contract that we've got now, whether we would be interested in renewing it with the language that's on there the same way. I'll check with him on a timeline though. We'll have that by the end of this week.
Probably be shortly January 1 or something, I think, yeah, that you want it.
That's getting, well, we'll see. That's pretty quick
That'd be pretty
turnaround,
tight.
but we'll have that info for Monday night if that's okay.
Yes,
Yeah.
perfect.
Perfect.
Okay. I'll take a note on it. We'll double check that.
Yeah.
That's the main holdup on our end, making sure the attorney's got it, because we've got the farm lease contracts. We used to have a one-page contract. When he redid it, it ended up being 7.5 pages, 8 pages, but it's a lot of holding harmless the city and making sure that the city's covered and those types of, when we have other people doing work for us. So,
That's why I said I wasn't sure how fast he would get back. If you give him
Right.
to him in the morning, he's
Right.
a lawyer.
yeah. I'll keep you updated though on that, if that's okay, on the status on that.
Absolutely.
Okay.
All right. We all set to move on?
Did you vote?
We
I
did
think I
vote.
kinda cut you off, but.
I believe
was
we
that in the
voted,
middle of
didn't
a vote?
No, I said aye.
All right, well, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
We might have voted once or twice.
I think you did, but I cut you off to talk about the attorney, so.
You did cut us off, I think.
Okay. Well, as we mentioned, and I'll get this with Attorney Kelly tomorrow. I'll
Yep.
stay in touch with you this week. But then it would go to next Monday night, 6:30 then. Okay.
All right. Engineers report.
Yep.
Thank you.
The wastewater treatment plant project, we're moving forward with design option B. We're still on schedule to open bids in March, April, as we predicted, so things are moving along there. Talked with Patrick about a couple minor things on there, but we'll have design meetings with city and go through items as we go through the process.
See you again, we're gonna be around.
East Alfred Street update, the county did get in, put the binder down, so that's done. The surface course will be put down in 2015. Landscape restoration, they got some of it done, but that'll be finalized in 15. The final report on assessments is part of this packet. Again, that's for the curb and gutter, and the driveway cost was derived, but a couple of driveways on the south side that were supposed to be put back asphalt did not get put back because of the mix was no longer being made. Property owners know that. But so the assessments that are in the packet tonight are for the curb and gutter for everybody, and then the driveways on the north side.
Okay,
Driveways on the south side, Patrick's gonna put a little note in with the assessments when they go out, plus on the bottom of the assessment roll, it says right there that it's, the assessments for the driveways on, asphalt driveways will be in 15.
Just a quick note too, the resolution that we passed when we had the public hearing on these assessments, you had
Yep.
Gary Rowan, Binley's, a couple people that
Yep.
showed up. The resolution we passed was, it was like a preliminary, it let people know that we intended to exercise our rights to assess.
Right.
In that resolution, it laid out the process to go through the hearing and the resolution, and the assessment, the final resolution. In there, it says that you'll get a final report from the engineer to the Public Works Committee. And after you get that report, which is just a rundown of the costs and the proposed assessments, after that is when we would send out a notice in the paper for a hearing. Because of the timing on that, we can't turn it around for next Monday night. So the intent would be that the assessments would be taken up in January.
okay,
We did look to have that taken up next Monday night, but the preliminary resolution says you can't, technically, you don't have to have a full formal action on the report, but after you get it, which you have it in the packet there, then we have to put the notice out. So that would be the intent on that. Now, the driveways, as Thad mentioned, they're not complete, so the assessments that we'll be looking at are just curb and gutter
all right.
in January.
Driveways for the north side are complete,
That's right.
because we put
That's right.
concrete in.
Yeah, in
And
general,
part of
they're
the
not though,
assessment,
but yeah.
right, okay. 2014 utility construction contract B14, that's all the sewer and water work that was completed, that's all done, final payments made, and that project's closed.
Okay,
Tank rehabilitation update, that contract has been closed out. Contractor did sign all the paperwork and sent it all back to me, but I'm waiting on a final lien waiver from one of his sub he used, and a consent of surety means that the bonding company says it's acceptable to make final payment. So, I mean, we've got the signed paperwork in hand, it's just I need those two forms. Once I get those, then that project's done and over. Park restroom building and demolition update. Patrick and I have been talking with Bauer Electric, and evidently you've secured a Bauer Electric to disconnect the electric at the garage, and then folks will come in and
Yep.
demo the building. And then next year, prior to season startup, Bauer will come back out and do something for the Little Red Schoolhouse to put it back in,
Yeah.
put it back in use. The CIP approval is located in the packet. We reviewed these costs this past summer, and then the only one that was outstanding, I think, was police department, and that is finalized, or?
Yeah, well, just a quick run through. Now, you got the CIP proposed in your packet. You remember Thad and I mentioned we were gonna go back through maybe even the last 5-6 years on all the projects that were in there
yep,
to see which ones had been completed, which ones hadn't. The ones that weren't completed, and off the top of my head, I don't remember all of them, but we pushed them back into the plan. A lot of them had sat in there with $0 amounts, so they were still out there. The one that's out there that we had, I think a month after I started, the rec committee took out that skateboard park idea. They took it out of the CIP, but, after we looked at that a little bit more, there was some money that was brought up in that project that was fundraised. I think there's money sitting on the side somewhere within the city's accounts. Now, I've taken a look through that, but there aren't any funds that we have that say skateboard park funds sitting on side. So the one question I had for you guys was, at one point, there was a group of people in town, and I think it was probably even 6-8 years ago, wanted to have a
Yep.
skateboard park built, and then they raised some money. It never really happened, and then I think at the time when I first started, the rec committee had said, well, all of the people that probably wanted it had probably moved on or left because you don't hear too much about it. So the question I had for you guys was, as we're looking at old projects that never really were completed, we tried to uncover them a little bit. The one with the skateboard park, we put it, you'll see a dollar amount in there. I scratched out the dollar amount. We just had it sitting there, and what I want to just review is if we've got money in there, and if you don't want to move forward with it, then we should probably take a look at what do we do with that money. Because if it's purposed specifically for a skateboard park, and you want to build one, well, then you have a head start, but if you don't, you know, I think it's okay just to leave it as a placeholder for right now. And then, we'll just double check on that money.
Yeah, but there was money donated, and Sally Reese
I would
was
imagine.
the spearhead person on that.
Okay. Yeah, and like I said, I'm still taking a look through, the auditors are coming in next week, and I'm just gonna double check with them.
Yeah.
Have them look through the funds on that. What we're looking at is the public works and then the water and sewer. The big projects for next year are obviously going to be probably the city hall and the treatment plant. And they're in the CIP for those years. Now, I don't anticipate that there will be any other real major projects as far as public works goes. Now, there might be some engineering items. Typically, the way that this is in the CIP is if you're gonna do a road, water, and sewer project,
Right.
whatever year you're gonna do the work in is where the bulk of that is in the CIP, but then there's a dollar amount for the engineering and planning in the year prior. Now, this isn't, the CIP as you've had it isn't connected to the capital budget, so this is really sort of like a roadmap. You know, the items that are in here aren't necessarily guaranteed to be funded every year.
Right.
There's a couple things that are in there. The one is the police, which will go to the police committee, but the schedule for squad car replacement has been every other year. But there's been a lot of discussion on, you have the Charger in service, and that technically or in theory, the police department said that they would delay purchases for squad cars then. But that's an item that'll go through to the police committee. So other than that,
What about Emerald Street? Or pavement, or
yeah,
path, or whatever you
and
call that thing?
that's, we don't have anything on there specifically right now, but later on in the agenda here, when we talk about parking and storage for the park, that would be one of the items that we'll take a look at.
Because I know here it is, you know, we do have
Is it for 2016?
2015, 2016, we're looking at, but that was my question. If we're going to
Yep.
do something,
Right.
that's nothing more than a glorified trail.
Emerald Street as it exists right now?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. We did, I mean, it's in there. We'll talk about it in a little bit, but the intent would be to look at upgrading some parking in that area there.
Right.
And as a result of that, we would have to widen the road and modify that, because right
Right.
now it's,
Well, that's just if if we're gonna put a garage up there, or a parking lot or whatever, that road can't handle much more than it's
Right.
getting.
Right.
And there's a big drainage problem there.
Yeah,
right. Yeah, but we'll talk about that a little bit more.
okay, sorry.
No, that's okay. And I'm glad you brought it up, because we did talk about that a little bit too.
Okay.
Yep.
Then the next item is the TID.
Well, the CIP, we do need action on though.
Oh, we need a motion
We
to
would
approve
need a
it?
motion to recommend the public works and the utilities,
Sorry,
if you can. No, that's okay.
I don't know if I can or not.
So you need a motion stating that we'd approve the CIP for 2015?
Yeah, no, actually, you can just make a general motion that just says approve the CIP from 2015 through, is it 2024?
Right,
Yeah, and again, this is a loose, fluid document.
And just because it's on there doesn't mean it has to get funded.
Right.
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 Okay. I'll make a motion to approve the CIP from 2015 to 20, when you say 24?
24,
Right.
Yep.
10-year.
For the public works and the,
Public Works.
You can leave it general even if you want to.
Okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
perfect. I'll second it.
It's fine.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Carries.
TID 6, Patrick, if you want to take that, we made a few revisions in the plan.
Yeah, there's a couple revisions in the plan. The way that this was put together, the projects that are TID eligible run to about $7.7 million, $7.8 million. The way that Ellers had designed the TID project plan, which is the whole document, was they looked at what would we need to cover all of those costs, and what type of new development would have to be, you know, how much new value would have to be constructed in that area. And to cover fully the $7.8 million, we would have to have almost $28 million in new development, which is pretty substantial. The estimates, and we can speak about it in open session now because the Agri-Pier project's been announced. The first $55 million phase one is probably going to result in an increase or some value of about $2.4 million being added onto the tax rolls. And that then would help to fund the money that we would have to apply to projects. Now, instead of a $28 million estimate, I believe that it's been revised by Ellers to be, is it $9 or $10 million over the 20-year period?
Yeah, I think it's 9 something.
About 9 million. So based on what the revised projections are, which are a lot more conservative on what type of new value is going to get created, the project plan itself has been modified so that $1.4 million worth of projects we can more safely assume would be covered by the new development. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Now, we didn't take any projects out of the plan. We got them all in there, and there's now, instead of a definite assumption that we're going to fund those costs with new development, there's a caveat in there that says, here's what we're gonna fund, it's 1.4 million worth of projects. If you borrow for it, the total cost would end up being about 2.2 million over 20 years, which is exactly what we think that TID is going to, well, I shouldn't say exactly, it's exactly what the estimate is on what kind of new money we're gonna get in. And then, you know, you'll take a look at like the treatment plant, that's the big one. Before, we had, off of 5.5 million, we had estimated that we could cover 70% of it with TID, which comes out to 3.8 and some odd change. The revised estimate is 14%, which is, I remember off the top of my head the total number, and I don't have it sitting in front of me here.
14%, 770.
770,000. So what we're looking at is, you know, revising those projects, we're looking at about 1.4 million. You guys really don't have to approve this project plan because it goes through the Joint Review Board and Plan Commission. But just to make you aware of it, all of those projects we discussed are still TID eligible on some level. But the key is, if there's not enough development to fund these projects, either we have to decide whether we're gonna do them, or if we are gonna do them, how are you gonna pay for them? Treatment plant, you know, there's different options you have.
Right.
That's really about it. It's just more, probably a more conservative estimate on what's gonna happen with the TID. Have any questions on that at all?
No. Not at the moment.
Okay. Mind if we take a break after this Lakeshore Drive one? So I can fill up my water here?
Yeah.
Okay, we'll do that.
They should drive one.
That's the next H. H is just the Lakeshore Drive upgrades.
Oh,
That's the
I
last
missed that.
item on
I
the
missed
engineer's
that there.
report, sorry.
I thought we ended at G.
Nope, there's one more.
Oh, okay. All right.
So the Lakeshore Drive upgrades, I turn over to Thad a little bit too, but this is for Autogaming Co-op Services. They're looking at a development to expand on what they have with the subway. And we won't get into that too much because that'll probably come to Plan Commission on the details of that, but what we wanted to make you aware of is what types of infrastructure improvements would have to be made on the Lakeshore Drive, Highway 110 West Main corridor, and it's, go ahead.
Yeah, we're looking at extending the water main a couple 100 feet, just past their driveways, extend the sanitary sewer, because what they wanna do is open cut the road, bring the sewer services across outside of the subway, parking lot, so they don't have to repave that and run into the new building. So we've got to extend our stuff a little bit, and then we're proposing to put in a road that's gonna handle the traffic that's gonna come through there, semis and cars and stuff, and then curb and gutter it. So it's gonna be about 300 feet of curb and gutter to the intersection. Intersection has to be, the radius has to be widened out a little bit so the semis can make the corner. So that's what we're looking at. Right now, Patrick has been talking with them about who pays what of the improvements. And you have the improvements for sewer and water is being borne by the developer. And then the potential of the roadway, because roadway benefits everybody in that area as a cost share.
Are we
But
gonna
that's-
be looking at, is that gonna need a lift station out there? Grinder pump
For
something?
right now, it will not, because they're planning on utilizing the far east section. The development they're looking at would be tucked in behind Subway. So we're not looking at running them all the way down to the west end of their property. And with that, the proposed road, curb and gutter improvements is probably only going to be improved as far as they need to dig up with the utilities. So we're looking, instead of 800 feet to get to the end of the road, the proposal right now is to go
300?
300 feet. Now with that, there's a little, it gets a little bit muddied because it used to be completely a town road. When they annexed in, like in 2008, there really was never anything written down or agreed with the town on what the share is with the town there.
Right. Well, that's what I'm wondering. I mean, eventually, they're gonna hopefully wanna develop the rest of that property. Are we looking at trying to get the properties, hitching posts and such move into the city? I'm just wondering
Yeah.
about stopping halfway with the road and not going all the way with the sewer, and then what's it gonna cost to dig it back up and add on?
Well, the sewer's gonna go as far as we need to get them service, and then we'll be done. Then that's as far as the gravity will go. Then any sewer service to anybody, remaining property of theirs or anybody along the lake, that all is gonna require a lift station at the bottom of the hill, and then bringing sewer up, so then it'll drain that way. And at that point in time, water will be extended, and then the road will be rebuilt. But the road's only gonna be rebuilt as far as the lateral services are now proposed.
So one of the discussions we've had with OCS, and I met them out there, and Fox was out there, and then OCS's engineer was out there too. And they sat and looked, and they weren't really all that pumped up about any road improvement at all, because that's where the bulk of the cost is. I mean, what we're estimating for the sanitary sewer, just for their benefit right now, about 13,000. The water, about 14,700. The roadway is the bulk here, about 75,000 with the roadway, curb and gutter. And then with the miscellaneous items added on, engineering, legal, contingency, it ends up being about $105,000. The 75,000 turns into, if we would do the whole road, you could probably almost double that if you're doing 700-800 feet of road.
Oh, you did more than that.
But there
Because
was some
storm
discussion, oh, well, and then
Yeah,
you'd be looking at storm
storm
sewer.
sewer included here because.
On this
we're-
one, it's enough where it's gonna either drain
Yeah.
to existing drainage. But when we sat out there on the road though, OCS kinda looked at the road as it sits now and they're like, do we really have to put in a brand new road if we developed any further now? And then they thought again and they said, well, as we were standing there, they thought, well, now we wish we would've put the road in when we put the subway in, because then now it'd be moot. And then part of their thinking was, well, if we develop this further, which is what they'd like to do, then they're gonna be sitting there thinking, well, why didn't we dig up the road the first or
Right.
second time? So we are gonna do something with the road, it's just a matter of who's gonna end up paying for it. And the difficulty is, again, it's a city townhouses on one side, city property on the other. I've asked the town, what's the breakdown there? They didn't really give me an answer, but I assume I know what the answer would be if we asked them
I
to
think
help
we know.
chip in on it, and I don't mean that in a negative way, it's
No,
just assuming,
but that's why, I'm trying to get them to annex into the city, so
Right.
it's all a city road. I mean,
Yeah.
it really doesn't make any sense anymore for that to be township.
There's been, I think, discussions over the years about and well before I got here about moving into the city,
Yeah.
and a lot of it had to do with water sewer upgrades too.
Right.
And I think from some of my notes and some of my discussions, a lot of people just spent a lot of money upgrading wells and septic tanks.
Yeah.
Where they thought, well, should I spend more now to hook up to the water sewer? But the discussions are ongoing. Right now, the Attorney Kelly's taking a look at a developer's agreement with these guys.
Okay.
But just so you kind of have an update, this is what we're looking at. And we're looking probably March, April-ish for the upgrades. I think that's when they'd like to start construction on their end. But
Yeah, we'll
it
need-
hasn't been really identified all that
Once,
well.
once they pull the trigger and say, okay, we're good to go, it's gonna take us, 2 months or so to get it out, you know, designed out on, get approval to get it out to bid and then, and actually do the work.
Yep.
Okay.
So that's the engineer's report.
You need a 5-minute break?
If we could, that'd be great.
All right.
Time we got? 5:59?
No, alrighty. Number 6, resolution number 562. Resolution declaring official intent to reimburse expenditures for clean water fund project wastewater treatment plant.
These two items, Resolution 562, Resolution 563, both related to, the year prior before you take on a project where you're gonna borrow from the Clean Water Fund loan or the Wisconsin Environmental Improvement Fund is what they call it. Basically, these are, I think, the last 2 Decembers now, we've approved these with the intent
Yep.
that we would do the project the next year, and as you know, the treatment plant's been held off. But for sure, it has to get completed next year, so that's what, 562 is declaring your official intent to reimburse expenditures for the Clean Water Fund project. Basically, it's something of a contract that says, yes, we're going to, if we borrow the money, we're gonna pay it back.
All right, so we just need a motion to take to council resolution 562, or
Yep.
recommendation
Yep.
of approval.
Yep. Are you making that motion?
I am making that motion.
All right. I'll second it. And then we need a roll call.
Gunderson,
Aye.
Nadowski.
Aye.
So then we have resolution number 563. Resolution authorizing the city attorney, or city administrator, I'm sorry, to file application for assistance from Wisconsin Environmental Improvement Fund, which is the Clean Water Fund Program.
All right. Make a motion to recommend approval for resolution 563 to the city council.
I'll second it. Patrick, got anything to say on it?
No, essentially, last year we didn't have this, we didn't have that resolution, and so what happened was the mayor had to sign the forms.
Yep.
Procedurally, it goes a little bit quicker as long as, if you authorize that I can sign on it. And obviously, everything that we approve or apply for, it's approved through you anyway, so.
Correct. All right, we need a roll call for that.
Gunderson,
Aye.
Nadowski,
Aye.
motion carries.
Carries. So now we're down to number 8. Review and approve the Clean Water Fund project information, intent to apply, and perf.
Yeah, this is what goes with the application. There's an intent to apply for the program, and then the PERF, P-E-R-F. Of course, I got the page here. That's a,
Priority evaluation ranking form.
yep, so
It's
it's
at the end here
based off
somewhere.
of this information.
Okay, back to 2 more.
Essentially, this is the application.
Yes,
So if now
well, the
that.
intent
Go
to
ahead.
apply is just that you're intending to apply and you give them the dollar value of what you're doing.
Yep.
And then the perf is just asking specific questions, how they can rank you amongst all the other applications. And that's what the perf is for. The application has yet to come, and that'll be
Okay.
this summer.
So if you want to make a motion, maybe to approve the intent to apply and the priority evaluation ranking form for the Clean Water Fund program.
All right. I'll make a motion to recommend approval of the intent to apply and the priority evaluation and ranking form for the Clean Water Fund program.
I'll second it. All in favor? Aye. It carries.
And then one other form that's in here is just authorizing to use online submittal.
For the intent to apply. Yeah, that, we had that with the intent to apply, if that's okay.
Sure. That's fine. Discussion and possible action on the 2015 consultative agreement with Cedar Corp.
Yep, we did typically, we could have this in the engineer's report, but I pulled it out. Earlier in the year, as the beginning of the meeting, you started with the garbage and recycling, which was towards the culmination of the process that we put out this year. The finance committee had recommended to, after we had to shop out or bid out insurance, we took a look at the purchasing plan, the purchasing policies of the city, and it said in there that every 3 years, insurance, engineer, attorney, garbage, they would all be shopped out. Now, a lot of them we don't believe had been shopped out, and so the option that I had presented to the finance committee was, well, here's your policy. Either you can change the policy to modify whatever schedule you'd like, or you can continue on with shopping out these services this year and follow your policy. So the intent at the time was we did schedule insurance because we had to. The legal services had been completed in May. We do have the garbage and recycling, which we had accepted in August. We're in December here now after we had a little bit of work in clarifying that, how you have that service, but we're getting there on that one. The assessor is out right now. That one is due next Monday. And it's going to go to, there's probably going to be a finance meeting right before council Monday night to have that reviewed, but we'll double check on that. I'm supposed to check with Scott this
Right.
Friday.
Okay.
So that's the intent with that one. The other one that's out there is the engineering. And at the time, the finance committee had put out a recommendation to review it later this year. This is about as late in the year as you get.
We're there.
And with engineering, we do have two agreements. One is the consultative agreement, which honestly is a pretty good deal if you look at what the dollar amount is. It's $6,350 for roughly 90 to 100 hours of work. We've been getting about 100, so maxing that out. That comes out to a rate of $63.50 an hour. I can safely say that that's about half of what the normal billing rate is. The consultative agreement is for, if I've got questions, I call Thad. He comes to the meetings. He's available to consult on different topics. And then also the CIP work is included in that too. That's the agreement that right now is being provided to you for 2015. The other agreement is a bigger agreement that basically relates to projects that the city has. And it's specifically projects that you assign to Cedar Corp.
Right.
So there's, I think, is it this year that agreement, the consultative agreement has always been on the calendar year. The other agreement was like on June.
June. Yes.
So what we did was we got them both to a calendar year. So Cedar Corp had said, well, yeah, we can extend it out to the calendar year. So they're both up now, January 1st. But if you think about the other agreement being a project agreement, and after we talked about the CIP, the two big projects we have going on next year are the city hall and the treatment plant. And on varying levels, you've locked in with Cedar Corp for the treatment plant, and then for the next phase in the city hall, you already have them here. I can assume that the consultative agreement with that discounted rate is not just a freestanding agreement where, they'll just come for $6,000 and you can assign all the projects to the other engineers. Now, that's the first time Thad's probably heard me say that, and I won't ask, but that's the assumption there. And the question I've got for you guys is, knowing that the finance committee had recommended that you at some point review this, is now a time that with the consulting, you'd like to have that shopped out? Or knowing that the projects that we're working on will be carrying us through 2015, should we also have the consultative agreement extended through 2015 and then take a look at these? I don't want to say next summer, but if you put out next summer, you have to start the wheels in motion.
Well, I think that we're too far involved with those two big projects to
I think
jump
we just-
shift chip
incur
right
more
now.
cost if we did it. Cause
Oh.
I think we wanna move forward on, we know we need to on the wastewater and we would
Right.
like to move forward on City Hall. so.
Right, so I guess I'd like to see them extended through next year at least until we.
Okay.
We'll look at it next year again and see where we are with projects.
I think what you might wanna do, and we could just, I'll put it on my own calendar, probably for next summer to start looking into this, because the garbage, we can rely on putting out a bid or a notice, and then they'll give us hard numbers right back. So what you looked at was a hard number on picking up.
Sort of.
This, well, you got numbers. So the,
And I'm just
The
assuming that
engineering
gets
now-
$63 an hour too. Right, Thad?
What's that?
You get $63 an hour too, right?
Right.
That's your,
yeah,
that's what I
we,
thought.
so in billing rates, the other thing is, this is going to be a lot more complex because we have engineering, but when you look at projects, what you sort of have wrapped in there is architectural work. They do have grant funding people that work with them too. Usually we're not billed for the grant work unless we actually get grant money. Or I can tell you that we really haven't had a bill for searching for grants. So there is a benefit to what we get, and with that, and with a diverse amount of services we get, it's going to be probably pretty difficult, or more difficult than the other services that we've done now. So what you have now is basically the consultative agreement. You know, the only thing we absolutely probably need is action on that.
You're right.
Yeah.
And then if you want to put any other caveats or conditions on how we look into this, that's up to you guys.
Well,
I mean, I guess with the projects that we have, I don't think there's a question about next year, at least not in my mind.
not only that, but let's just deal with a consultants agreement. So I'll make a motion that we approve the consultants agreement with Cedar Corp for 2015.
And I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Carries. And then with the engineering, I would, like I said, I'd certainly like to see that pushed out a little bit, if for no other reason that I don't want to continually every 5 years have legal, the garbage engineers, everybody coming do it exactly the same year. I would like to see things kind of spread out a little bit over the 5 years.
I think
So it
that's-
kind of a rotated, so we
It's a good
weren't
thought process.
pounding everything at once.
I agree with that.
The good news is, with insurance, you're not locked into a certain contract. It's sort of been a,
Right.
you know, it's up to you to decide when we're shopping that out. The attorney, we didn't sign like a 2, 3, 4 year, 5 year
Right.
contract. This one you have a year, but you know, the garbage, you're probably gonna wanna have a couple years. So you
Couple
have
years.
the ability to schedule
Right.
those out. This year's just been kinda,
Right. I just want to make
this
sure
has been the
that,
nuts year because we just got everything straight with a lot of things, and it's nice that we're getting to the end of it. I'll say that.
yes.
It's nice we did it too. I mean, I don't mean to,
Well, no,
it is a
it's
good thing that we did, so,
it's a good thing.
okay,
All right.
good enough.
So that was enough for that we,
Yeah, we should be, it's up to you, I guess. You know, the big thing, the finance committee gave a recommendation at some point to take a look at it. It's up to you if you wanna, I mean, we got it on video, we'll have it in the notes that say,
Right.
well, we're good. And with the consultative agreement, you're already approving, yeah, we're gonna be with Cedar Corp for another year yet,
all right,
you know?
Okay.
okay,
Thank you.
sure. All right, discussion and possible action on limited term utility employee.
I will give you a quick rundown. I had talked to Nick in the past couple weeks. Every spring, now, well, it's been 2 springs for me here, but it seems like every spring we look around, and even though we have one seasonal employee that works with Public Works and the utilities, there's been discussion on, you know, do we need to? And really, we haven't had a good sit down on exactly what kind of work we would put them to do, you know, but the discussion on my end was going to be, as we put together the utility budgets, keep in mind that, you know, potentially we could just get another seasonal employee in there, and then start to schedule out their work, have them work maybe like starting in January, February. We have 4 full-time employees now. Adding a seasonal employee would get us obviously above 4. The problem with that, and without getting into too many details, where we've had 4 full-time employees, one of them was in a off-duty car accident it was a week and a half ago.
Yeah.
And not with a city vehicle, nothing like that. It seems like the employee's doing okay,
Good.
but they're going to be probably off work at least 3 months, maybe 4 months. And with that, the discussion on adding to your 4 full-time employees changes quite a bit to just trying to be made whole with 4 bodies, I guess. The benefit we have is that in talking about adding a seasonal employee, we've had every semester, spring and fall, through Fox Valley Tech, they've got a natural resources program, which is kind of a broad program that trains people to do a lot of things. But one of the things it does is a lot of the wastewater treatment plant and water plant operating people, that's one of the degrees that they go and get. And for the last couple semesters, we've had one student that spends about 80 hours working at our plant and then job shadowing a little bit with our guys too. In 2013, we had Cody Sailing, who basically volunteered 80 hours, one day a week for 10 weeks. And then we hired him on as a seasonal guy, and it worked outstanding because he was already knew all the guys, knew pretty much everything we were doing, and then just started right away. Now, unfortunately, he was so good that he got a full-time job at the end of the summer, but we still got a good benefit out of that. And because of the timing with the injury and the time of year we're at, we're getting to a point where the semester is pretty much done now through Fox Valley Tech, and we've had a student who's sat in on the plant with us. And on top of that, they're not city employees, and we don't let them operate, any of the equipment, drive anything at all. But what they can do is be a second set of hands. So for the jetting,
Right.
checking out meters, we do give them, it's not just a treatment plant job shadowing. They're actually out doing the water department work, street department work, and they pretty much get an orientation essentially for about 80 hours. With that, the most recent employee, well, I won't say employee, student we've had is Quentin Kautzer. And he's getting to the point where the semester's done. He's also graduating from school, but he doesn't have a full-time job lined up in this field. And knowing that we have a need for an extra set of hands, probably for 3 to 4 months, and because we're looking at a seasonal employee already, I would recommend that because we have that need to fill it with a limited term employee. And the reason I bring up Quentin is because he's already been here 80 hours and he's sort of had his orientation. So if we can get the limited term person, which I think we need for sure, he would be the one that I would intend to hire. Now, to talk a little bit about limited term employees, we did have in, I believe it was 2012 going into 2013, we had a military deployment. And so you did hire for about 13, 14 months a limited term employee. That one though, that one at the time was granted at $14 an hour. It was assumed that it was full-time. Health insurance, had time off benefits, just like other full-time employees. And because you knew they were gonna be here at least 1,200 hours, you automatically had to put them in the Wisconsin Retirement Program, which adds 7% to the city's costs. In the end, we ended up hiring that person on full-time to get to our 4 full-time, so it worked out pretty good. But in this instance, what I would look at doing is creating the limited term employee, assuming they would work through April, which comes out to roughly 750 to 800 hours. So there's no worry about Wisconsin Retirement. That's a savings there of 7%. I would propose that we hire that at $10 an hour, which would be a savings over the 14 that you paid in the past. And then there would also be no health insurance, no time off benefits. And really, all new employees for 6 months, they only get like 2 PTO days. They don't get vacation or anything. So
Right.
if we're looking at through April, that's kind of a moot point anyway with vacation or things like that. So I think that's pretty much what I was looking to do then, is get the approval from you guys. Limited term through April, and then we'll revisit it in April to see where we're at. You know, it's kind of unknown because it's only been a week and a half since the full-time employee was injured, so we're just kind of guessing when they may be back. But if we ever hit the 1,200 hours, which would be more than what we're looking at right now, then at that point, then they would go on to Wisconsin retirement.
Right.
The difference is if you know they're going to go over up front, then you'd have to start them right away. So there's a little, I don't want to say minimal, but there's some savings there. And then again, no extra benefits that full-time employees get. So essentially what it is it's a seasonal employee plugged in for a limited term. Our seasonal employees are sitting at about $9.50 an hour, because this one is a little bit more skilled. It's not somebody we're just going to throw on a lawnmower. This person, we would have the intention that they would be able to utilize our equipment. You know, we don't have a whole lot of big heavy equipment, but at least a pickup truck with a plow. In this case, this employee, his winter job is, he works like for a landscaper, and he plows parking lots and some roadways. So he's got some experience with that too. But
And your bottom line there, consider similar uniform terms, so we are gonna,
that would, okay, yep, that's the other line too, would be with that other limited term employee, we put them on the Cintas, because we do have like a uniform rental where the guys get City of Weyauwega with their name.
Right.
That way they're identified as being employees.
right,
It runs $2 to $3 a week.
right, no, I would want that, I mean,
And then the other thing that we had, so that person, the other limited term person was on that. And then they also got the boot allowance to get, it's up to $75 in boot reimbursement. The question would be, because it's a winter person, do you want to add anything extra on there? You know, the one thing we could do is get, if you purchase winter equipment, last winter, we outfitted all the guys with, the city one-time issued everybody winter equipment, because in the past, they just kind of left it up to their own guy. Each guy was left to his own to get his own stuff, and it wasn't necessarily always high-vis or the best, and so the question would be, you know, if you wanted to purchase anything, what we could do is leave it as like general.
I would almost think we'd want like a standard issue for a city employee.
we do
just
want a
to make
standard
sure.
issue, we want him
Sure.
outfitted properly. We don't want him in the field without the proper PPE, and we want him
Yep.
identified as, he's a city employee, he needs to be identified as that.
Yeah,
I mean, that's
Yep.
just part of the cost of doing business,
yep, whether limited or not, I
Right.
think it needs to happen.
absolutely.
Yep.
So, you need a motion to approve hiring a person,
Yep. Yep.
a
Approve
limited,
a limited term utility employee.
So
Right.
I will make a motion to approve the hiring of a limited term employee for the city of Weyauwega to run through April of 2015.
and I'll second that. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, carries.
Okay.
Do you need us to do anything with the approval on what benefits, or since we spoke of the benefits prior to the approval, we're good?
Yeah, what I was proposing was $10 an hour,
Yep.
no health insurance, no time off, no paid time off. Wouldn't be on retirement, and then
Right.
Yeah, I
the
mean,
question
we
then would just
agreed
be
on that.
the equipment, you know,
Right.
the uniform, the safety stuff, that's all standard. That's stuff that the city owns, the safety equipment, but
Right,
so when you're looking at boots, looking at work boots, winter boots, I guess I'd like to get a little bit, so we got it on the record on what we're looking
we're
at.
gonna put him in anything he needs to do the job properly.
Okay,
So if he's gonna be out in the winter time shoveling and plowing, he's gonna need winter boots that are steel toed, just
Yep.
like everybody else. He's gonna
That's
need
what
the
we
high
did.
visible stuff.
yep, we did, so the winter standard issue that we set last year, which we went through with Tyler this year because we just hired him, was the winter safety boots, the high-vis bibs, high-vis jacket, and then hat and gloves too.
Yep,
And that's what that was issued
Yep.
then. And then everybody's got their own stuff.
and he's gonna need a
And
boot
it comes out
allowance.
to about, it's $300 to $400 for the winter stuff. A lot of that's in boots and.
It is
Yeah,
what it
you
is.
know, But,
He has to have that on,
yep.
you know, and he's gonna need a boot allowance then to get steel toed boots for the spring when it's no longer snow.
Yep. Okay, so then what we'll do is, the winter will be issued to him For the regular boots, it would be based on the city's policy for
Right.
boot reimbursement.
Absolutely.
Especially somebody, $10 an hour, it's kinda hard to be able to
Absolutely,
just
right.
spring for all that, so we need.
$10 an hour, now you're gonna spend $400 getting geared up.
Right, right.
That would be fair.
But that's, and then
I know.
the other thing I just wanted to add on there too is with an uncertain timeline for the full-time employee,
It could extend past April.
it could,
Right.
but even if it's through April, it doesn't look like they have enough time off so that it won't be a fully paid, I guess, leave time. And the preliminary estimate I've got is, and that's without the winter equipment, it's not, it probably shouldn't cost us any more as if the accident never happened at all, because we're paying roughly half of a full-time employee without any benefits. I mean, it's not going to be an increased cost, but, and even if it was, that's okay too.
It is
we
what
just
it
do
is.
We gotta do.
And that's right, we have to maintain the city. It's, it is what it is.
Yep. Sounds good.
All right,
All right, thank you.
thank you. Discussion on request for streetlights at Mill Pond Circle and County Highway AA.
This is a request that had come in quite some time ago. And I don't know that we ever officially approved of it. Now, what we looked at was Murphy Apartments, which is out in Mill Pond Circle. They're looking at County AA, it's 55 miles an hour out there. They have two entrances off of Mill Pond Circle, well, not entrances, Mill Pond Circle's got two intersections there. What they had requested was to get some type of street lighting, knowing the speeds. It's kind of, it's out of the city, so I can tell you that there's not really a glow of light out there at all. What they had asked for was the ability to install or have the city pay for and install a light at each intersection. The costs up front from We Energies were about $3,400 to get them installed. And then it would be about $30 a month for the power and the maintenance moving forward.
How
for
much a
the
month?
two, about 30.
30?
Yeah. And then the estimate, actually, because we didn't do anything with it right away, we kind of put it on the side and we said, well, let's take a look at TID development. Is there gonna be any more residential development? Do other intersections have lighting? And then we kind of let it on the side. But what I can tell you is the TID increment that's coming in right now for that district, which is district number 4 for them, it's more than what we pay out in debt payments. So the TID, the taxes basically on the apartments are, and the TID in general, are helping to carry the debt payment. So it would be an expense that would come out of the TID to have those installed, or that would be the intent. The We Energies has also updated the estimate that it's not $3,400 anymore, it's $3,000. And they were also updating that again now because I think that number was from September. So the question is this okay to have street lighting at those intersections? And in talking to the police chief, he has recommended that it is a good idea.
All right.
And Murphy Apartments had even said, you know, they were looking at trying to get us at least one street light where all the apartments empty out to, because a lot of people drive through there. If that's the bare minimum to do one, but they said they would like to have it on both if they could. So the request would be, you know, should we officially act on the request, either yes, we put in the lights, or no, we do not? The intent would be that they would be installed on existing poles right there. And, you know, because it's a residential area, I guess I could argue that those two intersections are different than the other industrial park intersections, if the lighting issue would ever come up.
Well, it is residential, we have families out there,
Yeah.
we have wildlife out there. We
Lot of
we have a
deer
lot of empty lots out there, we'd like to see some growth. So,
Yep.
I don't see a
And I
problem.
guess from my perspective, their taxes covered.
Right,
Well, and that's, the theory is, you know, the taxes they're paying are going to the district, so
right,
the same argument with Agripur and the treatment plant is that their taxes are helping to fund
yeah.
those improvements. Now, you've got a lot, it's about $1 million in debt that's out there yet, but it's also open to pay itself off for quite a while, so. And full disclosure, I live out there too, and I'm indifferent on the lights out there, so it's fine with me. But just so you know, it's not,
It's because they're always in the city.
yeah, there's lights on in here, so.
So,
So it would be an action on the request, whether to approve the installation of the streetlights or to deny the request, either way.
I'd make a motion to approve the streetlights at the Mill Pond Circle.
And I'll second that.
Nothing else for safety's sake.
All right, absolutely. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, carries.
Okay.
That's for both of them, right? Both
For
intersections?
two, yeah. Yep.
Perfect.
If that's what your motion is,
Yes.
yep,
Yep.
yeah.
Yeah, we want to. All right, discussion and possible action on the 2015 utility budgets.
That you do not have them completed here. The one thing we're looking at is the expenses for the treatment plant project, for sewer and how that's going to impact on the sewer budget. The one thing that's going to be interesting is that when I started January of 2013, you didn't have utility budgets approved. And I think we got them maybe like in May.
Yeah.
And I was kind of off the cuff, just guessing kind of low, and I hoped it was low. And then before we finished the first year with me here, we had to go and do the 2014 budget. So technically, I did two of them without knowing what it costs us for 1 year, what we take in, or at least completely knowing. And what I'll probably recommend, if that's okay with the committee, is that we hold the utility budgets till January, because at that point then, we'll have 99.9% of this year done, so we'll have 2 years done. I can tell you the good news is, on the water and the sewer, I was hoping I was guessing low or estimating low, and the water was almost dead on, so that's good. And the sewer, we were a little bit low on, or my estimates were a little bit low. And a lot of that has to do with, this sounds goofy, but with Agriper, they do have like fines and penalties, and it's called penalties, but it's not, we're not really penalizing them. Basically, in our agreement, they have certain levels that they need to stay within. And when they send us material that's out of those levels, there's an extra upcharge. And last month's upcharge was $17,000. So it's, when they run a little bit heavier or they get more flow, we get more revenue.
Yeah.
On the water, what I had estimated was about $430,000 in revenue, and tried to match expenses with that. And it was about on. The one thing that's gonna change for next year is we were getting about $10,000 from Airdyne Wireless, Airfire Mobile. They had their towers on our water tower up on the top of the hill by Mill Street, and they were paying us about 10 grand a year for that. My understanding is that Airfire has gone belly up, and so they gave us the notice that they were gonna be taking their equipment off. And with that, we're gonna probably lose $10,000 in revenue. The good news there, though, is that this year we did the cross-control or cross-connection inspection program, and that cost us about 20 grand just to get all the businesses and all the water connections inspected. We went that way because it was just like the shopping of services. You get it done in 1 year, and then you're good for 2, 4, or 6 years. So while we have 10,000 less of revenue, we also have about 20 grand less in expenses too. So there is a little bit of cushion there. So that'll be good. And then just looking at, through 11 months this year, it's still tracking the estimates about what I had estimated and what we had in 2013. For the sewer, the estimate was about $810,000 that we would take in. And in 2013, we took in, it was closer to 900,000. And it looks like we're about 860,000 through 11 months. So there's some cushion there, which is gonna help, because if we complete by January the root cutting, televising programs through the city, that's where we'll be able to get some of that money out of, and then also to apply it on the treatment plant project itself. So the long and short of it is, it'll come in January. It's about 99% of the way done.
Is there any chance to sign up somebody else for the water tower?
Not
Recoup that
really.
Maybe
revenue?
somebody will watch this and want it.
I
They
mean,
could potentially. I mean, there's a
I know
couple. It's
companies
weird.
do
There's
look for
companies.
that at different times,
Yep.
so
Yep.
I
What
don't
we
know if
did
there's a way
do-
for us to sell it.
So Airdyne had come and taken down their equipment, but on that old water tower, they also put, it's like 20-foot posts that they installed around the outside so that you can include stuff. They had asked if they could take that down or if they could just leave it, and we had said, well, you might as well just leave it, because it's something else that if somebody else wants to put something on
Right,
there.
absolutely.
Now, the school district, I believe, has some equipment on our towers, and then Weyauwega Online, Weyauwega Wireless or whatever, they've got stuff on our towers too,
And
but,
the 250.
yeah.
Yeah.
But we could take a look in that
I'm
too.
just saying, if there's an option to sell it.
Yeah,
They set out, maybe
Yeah,
Star Communications or somebody.
yeah, yeah.
might as well try.
Yeah,
Yep, so we're looking into that. That'll be in January, and it's not an issue at all. It's, in theory, they're already hashed out, you know,
all right,
so,
very
okay?
good. All right, so discussion and possible action on the park storage, parking.
What I will present to you is information a couple of months ago had come to you already. And it's to talk about that area of the park, the community park that's just to the east of the swim lake. It shows you, the first page just shows you an overview of the park in red. It's that grove or area of pine trees along Emerald Street.
Yeah,
Page 2 is just kind of shows you this is the city of Weyauwega. Page 3 in the packet is the deed itself, which for 20 years, the city could not really pave anything in that area, so Emerald Street sort of sat the way it did.
all right,
The city really couldn't do anything with that patch of woods for 20 years. That expired at the end of 2013. We had also obtained that property with a DNR grant, and the DNR grant says, you know, that it's a recreation area, which would still be a recreation area with the park, and there is a storage shed on that property right now. The DNR had said that they're okay with any upgrades in that area, as long as they fit with recreational use. Now, a parking lot is considered access to recreational use, so that's something that we could do. And then also, because we have a storage building on there now, some type of storage would be allowable too. When you go to the next page, this is just a quick rundown of the top. The way that park and that area of woods looked at the very beginning of this year was well overgrown. That's actually me standing in the swim lake area looking at that.
all right,
When you look at the bottom page, that's after about $1,600 worth of clearing, cutting, spraying, chipping. And with the chipping, what we did was we chipped it all and left it there to try to create a nice bed. But what I can tell you is by the end of summer, it's grown back, not the same and not as thick, but it's still grown back again, to the point where, knowing we spent about $1,500 to $1,600 in our employees' effort, and then also Andy Leith with Legacy Landscaping at 20-something an hour, spraying, cutting, all that. We can probably build in that every year, maybe twice a year to keep this clear, it'll take us $1,000 to $1,500.
Is it doing any damage to that fence there?
I
Swim
believe
lake.
it is
I'm
doing
sure
quite
it
a
is.
bit of damage, yeah. The fence all the way around the
Seen
swim
all
lake
those
is in
bad shape.
not the best shape. Some of it's pretty good, but this is like the back area where it doesn't get a whole lot of use by people. Now the next page then, which it says it's page 6 of 7 on the bottom, but that's the old markings. Page 6 is from Emerald Street, and you get an idea on top again of what that looked like. You know, the idea of the effort in there to clear that out and make any use of this is one thing, but the other piece is, you know, if we're gonna tell people to cut their noxious weeds and
Right.
clear everything up, the reason why we went and cleared it out was, you know, if, for nothing else than to say, well, we're taking care of our stuff.
And we have to lead by example.
Yep. So, and it's a good thing, but it's also, it's going to be probably a big effort going forward, because our tree cutting, tree control budget is only about $3,000 a year. So when this is, you're looking at maybe half of that, or half that amount on this, that's
Yeah.
a lot. And then the very last page just gives you a better idea from Emerald Street, once it's been cleared up, what does that street look like? It literally looks like a path through the woods on Emerald, but we can get to that through the CIP. When we look at storage facilities and parking, one of the topics was, you know, is there room on this piece of land to put a storage building of some kind? And I think there is. On top of that, there's also probably the ability for us to put in some type of parking for the park there. It gets really congested for the Ball Diamond, really, really congested for the Ball Diamond. When Summerfest was happening, people parked all the way up the
Right.
hill. I mean, it was a good thing, but it's also takes up space for the park too. One of the things we talked about with Jim Albright, who's the seasonal guy in the parks, we were looking at, you know, what would it cost to clear some of these pine trees out? Because some of them are super, super huge. And if they would ever fall down or come apart, they would tear a lot of things up if they did that. So there's a little bit of a threat, you know, that fence is in bad shape already, but there's houses nearby, kids in the pool, what happens if something bad would happen there? What we did do is we talked to Legacy Landscaping to see what it would cost him to, or what his quote would be to clear out those trees, and it was quite a bit, upwards of $4,000 or $5,000. But that's with a guy with a chainsaw and really big trees. One thing that Jim Albright had thought of was to call AAA Hardwoods in town, and they did come out and take a look, and they did say that they thought in a day or two they could clear out as many trees or all the trees if we wanted to, and then it would clear out an area there, and on top of that, they wouldn't charge us for that at all. They would actually pay us for the lumber. So that helps quite a bit, and it also could, you know, it gets rid of our ongoing maintenance of having to cut and spray and kill all the weeds and grass and everything that grows in there. But then it also, technically what we could do is clear that out and eventually put in some nice parking or maybe
Right.
more recreational area. But for 2015, AAA Hardwoods wouldn't be able to get here till March or April. They had said that already last fall. But they figured in a day or two they could come through, take these out. They could take out stumps, or the one thing we did talk to was Fox Brothers about getting a quote to come in, pull stumps, and then for, if nothing else, just to gravel that area so that there's some type of a parking for next year, but
No.
it's either way. We didn't get too far on the parking, what would all be involved there, but the question or the concern is gonna be, if we can't cut it till March or April, you know, maybe in January, February, we should be talking about road improvements, driveway, parking improvements there. The gravel was just a thought, you know, as like a interim to get to something paved, but
Has there been any requests or thoughts of whether or not that connects from that side, roadway wise, to get into the park from a separate way?
well, right now, what we do is when you get to the top of Emerald Street, there's like a big, it's just kind of a stop,
It's like a little walk,
dead end
Right,
there.
there's an entrance there for walking, and I would.
Just walking, yeah.
And I would leave it like that.
just to keep down traffic.
Right. At least I think, I don't know,
Yeah.
that'd be up to engineers to look at. I'm no engineer.
Right.
But from my perspective, I would rather have these cars leave here and the other cars leave the park and not have them swinging
Well,
around.
I wouldn't tie them together. I would just,
Yeah.
like you said, walk in,
Yeah,
just another alternate place to park.
right.
One thing we could do is, I mean, I plan on rerunning, so I'm gonna have to go around and get signatures. I could bring this packet with me and ask some of the residents around the area what they'd like to see too out of the area.
You could, yeah.
Good.
I mean, I don't know if they find it
Yeah.
to be a benefit. I doubt it based on the way it's overgrown, but
Yeah,
it'd be something to ask.
it's kind of, it's a different situation in that there's a lot of different moving parts. You know, we've got a need for a new storage facility somewhere. A need for parking everywhere in the park, and then on top of that, just maintaining this area here right now.
Right.
We got an idea that it's quite a bit of work, which we can do, but,
No.
you know, then we're maintaining it,
And
there's
it's
really
all
not a
just-
lot of use you're
It's
getting
all
out
just
of it.
basically pines, right?
It is.
Right,
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
all it is.
yep,
Well,
So it's
pines
not
and
like-
weeds.
Yeah.
There's nothing.
You know, I mean, we could make better use of that, I think, with
yeah.
other things, even if it was different trees, you could
Oh.
at least make better use of the area.
One thing we could take a look at, and even if you decide to cut some of them out of there, you know, we could leave some along the fence, or you can do whatever you wanna do there, but right now, you know, just the general idea of potentially clearing that out and using the space at all, I mean, it's something that we could check with Cedar Corp on, you know, what might be involved with installing, upgrading the road. Upgrading the road, we kinda got an idea on some estimates, but then, you know, paving the parking lot, where does that drain to?
Right. I
How's that
would,
gonna flow?
you know, if you're looking for some sort of recommendation, I would recommend that we, get with Cedar Corp and do some planning.
Yeah, look together. to
Do
put
some,
a park
get
on.
some measurements, do some planning on whatever size storage facility you're gonna need for the park equipment, and then what area is left. Same thing with the drainage, the sewers, the roads, because that road is, like I said, that's just a glorified trail. It needs to be redone.
A lot of it's gravel already that
Yeah.
already gets down, you
Yeah,
know,
it's-
so that, it is one thing, if you put more gravel in there,
Yeah.
that's more gravel down the street.
Right. Yeah, so I would, you know, so if, do you want that in a recommendation?
Yeah, we can, and it doesn't have to be a motion that goes to council, it could just be a motion here that you
Right.
potentially direct this to, direct staff to consult with Cedar Corp to investigate options for the area.
Basically, we kind of want to identify the footprint and what the cost would
Right.
be to make it effective instead of
Right.
a gravel lot, I guess.
Right.
Yeah. And like I said, knowing that AAA Hardwoods isn't gonna be able to get there till March, April, there's no
We got
rush
a little
on
time.
Right.
doing that anyway.
Fine. So I'll make a motion for everything I said.
Okay?
I second that.
All in favor? Aye. Aye, and that was just for
Yep.
you to do
No
something.
problem.
All right. Now we get to 14. Discussion and possible action on city snow removal practices and policies. And I stopped and talked to Tyler.
Tyler and the John Deere,
Yeah, and I
pass that around if you'd like.
asked him if he was in the tractor all day today. He said yes. I told him he did a good job. I think the streets look pretty good out there right now.
That's just for reference too. You got one there? It's just the one loose one, it's two-sided, and then I got a little packet on some pictures today. One of the, well, I'll just lay out, you know, for Keith's benefit. The way that the city sort of attacks snow in the city, I guess, is, it's varying levels of different entities involved. One is the county comes through and they catch F and X.
Yep.
And then they also
Main
catch a
drags.
couple other little pieces through town too. What we've asked of them is to be able to hit some of the other main streets, because this is the first year and because we've had snow twice now. We're working on that, getting that all kind of clarified yet, but, the county's through town, and usually with the roads that the county does, those are the best, because they salt everything and it gets down to the road, which is great. The other piece that the city has is that we do contract with Fox Brothers to remove snow, and then also, to push snow off the roads and then remove it too, and when they remove it, essentially it's a full clean out of like downtown and the business area.
Yep.
Everything gets pushed to the middle of the road, then they blow it all into trucks and haul it away. Because we don't have the trucks or the big heavy equipment on hand, we rely on somebody else to do some of that work. And then starting last year now, we did start to lease the John Deere. I'm trying to 6325, I believe, is the model of the John Deere, but we lease essentially a $130,000 piece of equipment for about $8,000 a year, and 2/3 of that we charge to the yard waste site for composting. So for about $3,000, less than $3,000, we get a pretty nice piece of equipment with a snowplow on it. So those are the three ways that we go about with snow removal or getting the snow off the streets. Now, because of that, with the county, we almost have no control over them because they're directed by the county to do their work. With Fox Brothers, we have a little bit more control because we hire them and they're an extension of us. But, you know, I don't mean to sound that Fox Brothers isn't the most responsive, but I guess we have a little bit less authority there because most of their people they schedule for regular work. And while they say that we're their first priority for snow removal, and I believe we are, you know, snow doesn't always happen Monday through Friday, 8 to 3 or 7 to 3 or whatever. So usually there's some coordinating that goes on, and I don't have a direct line to each plow driver to say, hey, get out at 2:30, take the grader, take this, take whatever. So there's a little bit more. I call a guy, who calls a guy, who calls a guy. And that works okay, but it's, on top of that, because we don't own the equipment, it's expensive. It's about $110 an hour for the grader and about $160 an hour for the loader with a wing on it, which that's just the rate. And, you know, the benefit there is we don't have to buy the equipment. We just pay for it when we need it. We pay a little bit more than what we probably should. If, you know, segue would be because we're leasing a John Deere, we can lease that for about $20 an hour. And then we could pay a guy about $25 an hour. To have the John Deere, we run it for about $50 an hour, I would imagine.
Did that new blade come in yet?
It did not.
Yeah.
It did not. The new tractor did not come yet either, but they've told us, Reister and Schnell told us that we'll have this until the new one comes in. But so for like for instance now, the first snow that we had was about 3-4 inches. We called in Fox Brothers. They did a full clean out. That was that. Usually it runs $5,000-$6,000 for clean out like that. When we have our own guys, we're able to pay them $20-$25 an hour, and then the equipment that we lease is $20 an hour. So Fox Brothers usually runs about $350 an hour for all of the moving parts. We can probably do it for about $100-$125, but it takes us a little bit longer. And the benefit is it's our own guys. The problem we have is we haven't had our own guys in our own tractor a whole lot, so we don't have. We're not really experienced with it, I guess. We're just kind of getting there on it. With that, because we're trying to get into our own guys doing more work, because it's cheaper, you're going to see things that didn't always get completed as fast as they did with Fox, I guess. And a couple of the items that I'll put out to you are on the handout that I gave you, the sheets here. Usually when we'd call Fox Brothers in, if we knew it was gonna snow quite a bit, we'd get them all lined up at midnight, 2 in the morning, and have that full crew go out. And a lot of times they would have everything cleared up by 6-7 o'clock in the morning, if it technically snowed till midnight. And then, when people would go out and clean out their businesses, they didn't have to worry about us coming down the street because the street was already cleared out. What we're looking at doing is, because we can't put out all 3-4 of our guys from midnight till 8 in the morning, technically we wouldn't have anybody to run the treatment plant, the water, or whatever.
Right.
We're trying to make it work with our own guys if we can. Like last night, the problem is you look at the forecast and it was like a 30-40% chance to snow all night, and then it rained, and then it snowed, and then we got the guys out as soon as we could this morning. And within a day, I think it looks pretty good, actually,
I think
considering that it was raining and slushy and all that. But we had the truck with a plow, we had the John Deere, and then we had a guy pushing around a snow blower getting some of the sidewalks. One of the complaints I had from the last time we did snow removal in town was downtown, or just outside of downtown at the funeral home and the First National Bank. It snowed 2 weekends ago, and then it got really cold, so there was a lot of ice on the road, a lot of just cover on the road. But then last weekend, or was it 2 weekends? I think it was Thanksgiving weekend. It was like 40 degrees on Friday, Saturday.
All right.
What we did was we put down salt, which is a change. We used to put down sand, mostly sand, and then we had problems with it. It didn't work all that well either, because it was only 10% salt. But we've thrown down more salts. What we did was we got it down on the road, it warmed up, everything was slushy, so that was kind of a mess on Saturday. And then Saturday night, Sunday morning, we had the John Deere out, and Tyler was in the John Deere. It's the first time he's been in the John Deere to clear everything off. But he cleared everything off to the side of the road a week after it snowed. And then Sunday night, it got down to like 5 degrees and then froze. So we got everything off the road in most of the areas, major areas in the city. And there's a lot of people that were out deer hunting, and they had cleared out their driveways the week before. And then when they got home Sunday night or whatever it was, at least 2 of them had contacted me or called me and said, well, hey, I leave for the weekend and I get home and now I've got ice and slush and snow at the end of my driveway. And what happened was, like I said, we cleared the road off, got it off the street, it ends up in people's driveways. There was a little bit that ended up at the funeral home, just kind of on the sidewalk a little bit. They have a double sidewalk there.
Yep.
I mean, it wasn't really extreme that we had a lot of ice on the sidewalks or anything like that, but one of the complaints was, well, a week after it snowed, we got the snow off the road. It was kind of bothering people that it wasn't, it would be nice if it was off the road and out of the driveway too, but we can't get all of that, I guess. It'd be nice, it'd be great,
Everybody's
No,
driving.
you cannot.
So, some of the concern was, because in the ordinance, which is the other handout that we gave you, typically we give people 24 hours to clear off their sidewalks. The problem is with sidewalks, you hope most people would just throw it into their yard or put it somewhere where it's not sort of in the road. But a lot of people just clear the sidewalks off, sometimes clear their driveway off, throw it in the road. I guess I can see the logic on that if the plow didn't come through yet. that, you know, maybe we would just plow the snow right back off then, but sometimes the problems we run into is we clear the street, people will go blow snow out onto the road and then complain that the road isn't cleared off all the way. So there's a couple issues we get with that. The other, you know, I guess as we look at the ordinance, people are supposed to clear off within 24 hours off of their sidewalks. If they don't, we send them a letter, and the city either tells them to clear it themselves, or then we're able to go clear it off. And if we clear it off, in the past, the city has just charged $100 flat rate, and then whatever the cost is to clear their sidewalk. And knowing what the cost is, usually most people will go clear it off and then get it done, and then we don't really have to worry about it at all. But there are some areas, if you look at letter C, and it's highlighted, but it's in gray here because it's black and white copy. And you look halfway down, so prohibited placement, basically it just says you can't put your snow off of your property onto roads or onto sidewalks, except where existing buildings are constructed within 5 feet of the street right-of-way. So a lot of the buildings downtown where the building is on
Correct.
top of the street. And also where sidewalk exists from the city right-of-way to the curb line, you know, basically there's nowhere for people to put their snow. So what they allow is to put that into the street.
Right.
And that's okay. The problem then is just, you hope that they do that before the city comes through. If they don't, we have to go back. In some cases, on the pictures that you have on First National Bank and at the funeral home, their contractor sometimes beats us out, clears off the sidewalk, and then when we come through and clear it out, some of the snow gets left on the curb. And by ordinance, they're not supposed to be pushing this into the road because they're not, the area they have, they've got room to push. I guess maybe for the funeral home, it's supposed to get pushed back. The bank would be, depending on where the snow is taken from, you know, how does that work? But the problem is, the bank and the funeral home were two areas where, when it was nice and warm, we cleared off the road. A little bit was left on the curb, and then they complained and said, well, this isn't right. And I get it, I understand. But as policy setters for you guys, I talked to Nick a little bit about this, I talked to the mayor too. The policy from your end should be, what is the expectation for clearing off streets whenever it snows? And on the day-to-day end, you know, we've got a lot of options available to us, but reasonably, we try to get whatever your goal is for street snow removal. Now today, it snowed a couple inches and then rained, and I think by the end of the day, we cleared up quite a bit. And actually, we got downtown, maybe we got lucky Mondays, some places are closed, but we actually cleared up a lot of the parking spaces too. Technically, our liability as a city is when it snows, we're not really liable for icy conditions for 2 weeks after the snow, but the problem is we're not gonna let streets sit for 2 weeks. You know, we try to get it done as soon as we can, but you're never really gonna make everybody happy. You know, people don't want the snow in their driveway, but they also want it off the road, and we're not able to align our schedules with everybody's schedule, but you know, maybe if we can have people know that we try to clear the road off, that's our priority. If snow ends up on their driveway, so for homes, where I lived, I mean, I've always been snowed in, I guess, where I've been plowed in, and I like having the street cleared, but that's kind of how we're operating, is we try to get to everything as soon as we can. We try to get the major areas first. When we're able, we do clear out the downtown, but we're also trying to do it in a cost-effective manner. We could call Fox Brothers every time to haul everything out, but with a $50,000 budget for snow removal, you know, that $6,000-7,000 a pop to clear everything out, that would go through pretty quick. One of the things I can probably bring up, if we just talk about the problem of down by the bank and the funeral home, the pictures I gave to you are actually from today. The one picture is from the bank, right at 8 o'clock in the morning. We did get our crew out. The bank sidewalk was cleared off first, and you could see it was in the road, it was off of their property. And then the bottom picture is after we came by with the road. There's some snow that's piled up on the curb there. The probably about 6 to 8 inches of snow that's piled up. The sidewalk is still open. What happened then is later on, the contractor had come back through and just kind of shoveled that snow off and put it back in the road, which it's in the road, but it's not on their curb. It's kind of a give and take there on whether that's okay. And then on the second page, you'll see a picture just of the funeral home. The top picture is before about 8 o'clock again. You can see the coloring is about 8 o'clock in the morning. And then the bottom one is after we plowed. They do have a double wide sidewalk, and I want to say at least 3/4 of the sidewalk is wide open there. Right now, because we just have the big trucks, if we would have to clear that off, we would send a guy out with probably a shovel. Or maybe a snow blower to blow that off, but it's not ideal. And then the back of that page shows that contractor was out with a shovel and a leaf blower today at the funeral home. But one of the items that we have, and it ties in a little bit to the work that we have to do, if we have to go clear off sidewalks for people, because we're able to charge them $100 up front and then also charge them for our effort, it probably, we would end up making a little bit of money on it, but if we have to send a guy out for snow and ice that's sat for 2-3 days, they're probably going out with a shovel or a snow blower, and it's usually not really efficient. But for the people that don't clear their sidewalks, we would be charging at least $100. After that first snow, I went by just to get an idea of how many people we would probably send a letter to that didn't clear their sidewalk. And just on that first snowfall, there was 14 people that technically would have sent a letter or hung a door tag and said, clear your sidewalk or we'll come and get it. So if you look at that, that's at least a $1,400 income right away. And then whatever else we can do, whatever our cost is, we can charge that too. And I did talk to Nick after that snowfall, and I gave him that information. And I had said that we were talking with Reister and Schnell or John Deere about, we lease the big tractor. Is there an opportunity to lease something that's maybe a little bit smaller or rent something that's a little bit smaller? And the answer is there is, but we were not able to get a quote through Reister and Schnell out of Hortonville. But we did call around. I called Service Motor Company. I called Swiderski's in Weyauwega. I had called Reister, and then I called Caroline Implement in Marion. And Caroline basically has a John Deere. It's a 1025R, and what it is it's a souped-up lawnmower, and you can get a blower, snow blower, and a broom attachment on the front of it. And the rental for this is $20 an engine hour. And for the rental, it would end up being, for what we'd use it for, probably about 4 months, and it would probably end up being about $3,000 just to rent this. We could buy it for about $18,000, but because we don't know how great that'll work, for just the snow removal purposes, we thought, I got some quotes, and I thought, well, for $20 an hour, that may work.
I mean, for $3,000, you're
Yeah.
gonna get a nice capability that will help you out with the downtown.
Right.
Avoid the Falk Brothers
Right.
issue and help with some of the other issues that we're gonna run into
Yep.
this year.
Yep.
So,
And we get to test it out.
yeah,
So
and then
if
on
we
top
like
of that,
it, we
so
look at buying.
yeah,
Right.
and if we rent it, so the idea is, and I talked to Nick, and looking at purchasing policies, under $5,000, the authority to grant, just like we talked about with garbage, there's different layers of who's got the authority to purchase. The authority is with me if it's under $5,000, if I get the quotes and get them, get the quotes out there. And we did. And so I talked to Nick and I said, well, this is what I would like to do. $3,000 to rent the tractor. Caroline Implement would be able to get it within a week to 10 days, which is going to be later this week. We've got the broom, a snow blower. It is going to come with like a fabric, not a full cab.
Yeah,
A full cab was like $5,000 they could fabricate, and I thought, no, that's not okay. But at least, a fabric type windbreak is basically what they call it. But what we could do with this piece of equipment is, if we have to go do other people's sidewalks, we could get it done pretty quickly.
Right.
And if the last time it snowed, there were 14 people that we could have gone out and done at least $100 a piece, there's a chance that we could not only break even on it, but make money on it. And that's not the goal. The goal is to clear the roads off. But what we could also do is, there's a lot of city-owned property that we clear off. The bridge,
I guess when I look at it,
downtown.
it sounds like, this would be a nice way to,
Yep.
help take away some hazards and promote public safety, so.
I think, and that's kind of the way we went. And then on top of that, we
Do
did
it
have a
with-
snow blower that blew
Without
out.
somebody shoveling it.
Right.
Yeah. And we had a snow blower that blew out, so we have to take a look at
Do we
potentially
have any
buying one.
place to store this at City Hall?
We got a garage.
You
We
do
have
have-
room in the garage.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, my biggest concern is if we weren't able to keep it somewhere downtown, then it's not gonna be
Yep,
as
it'll be
effective
behind
as we
City Hall.
want.
No, it'll access.
Yeah. So the benefit is, on the front page of the sheet here, after we plow, obviously somebody went out and did a nice job of clearing off the sidewalk. It's something that quickly and easily, if we leave a mess, we could clear it off if we had the time or the ability. But the big thing is we can get out and clear a lot of the sidewalks
Right.
a lot quicker, a lot easier. And then the other thing is, when we rent it, if we find out at the end of the rental that we'd like to buy it, we get 100% credit on our rent towards the purchase price if we'd want to do that. So that's,
So, yeah, I guess.
It helps.
The
It
biggest part
helps.
would just be making sure that we assess what our productive value is of it.
yep,
Right.
What kind of use and value do we get out of it, and if it's worthwhile,
yep,
then we look at purchase.
yep. So we'll take a look at that. It's a rental for now, and it's just an update only on that part of it, because it's something that we do have in the works, and
Awesome.
we'll see how that works. So I'm kind of excited about that. That'll be,
I saw something else in there
That'll help.
about salt.
yes, on the report, on the memo that we've got there.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes. And I do have an attachment to it. I just got an email today, update from the county. On salt purchasing you're looking at?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so what you were looking at here is, do you already have it set up where the county's doing our salting this year?
We can have the county come through and salt the roads. We can pay Fox Brothers to come through with a truck and salt on their own. But what we've had in the past is, we've usually bought like a sand mix from Fox Brothers, because it's a quoted rate that we get from them per ton. We can buy any kind of mix of salt and sand. We can buy straight salt. The county also gives us the opportunity to buy from them. The problem is, over the years, we always had like a 90% sand mix, and then it was clogging sewers. Sand itself doesn't really do anything at all for the road. The salt is what does something for it. But last year, we switched to at least a 50-50 salt and sand, and it worked pretty good. The sand, if nothing else, it at least showed people that something happened on the road, so that at least they
Yeah.
kind of felt good, I guess.
I just know a lot of the side streets in Weyauwega, if you're not, the highway that's getting plowed right away, it's a skating rink out there.
Yeah. So the salt, when we put the salt down, it works really good.
Really good.
Yeah.
The problem is, like last year got so nuts, and because we don't store our own salt, I mean, we store just enough for about a week or two. In our treatment plant, we have a sludge barn that technically people really shouldn't be in there at all, but it's not always secured and locked. But we order material, and then they dump it, and then we kind of load the trucks. And the problem we had last year was switching straight to salt, because the winter was so harsh. We were relying on people who were already running out of their own salt, and so they kind of said,
Is this something we
Probably
look
no.
at? I know you got some storage possibilities as something to look at. Is that something that could be built in or maybe placed with the park and with the equipment?
Well,
potentially, and that's an option, but so, to go on that note that's in the packet, usually we've gone with Fox Brothers in the past, and I believe their straight salt rate has been something like $60-70 a ton. And then they don't charge for delivery if it's so many tons or whatever. But the problem we have with relying on Fox Brothers this year now is that we got one load, a small load from them. And when we got the small load, they had said, just so you know, we're uneasy because it snowed so early and it's getting cold. And they saw last year, and they said they weren't sure they could fulfill our straight salt order if we wanted to. They could give us the mix, because that encompasses a lot less salt, but the problem is, we're trying to get away from that, yeah. But on the other hand, the county, though, we're able to purchase salt through, it's cheaper. And when I had heard from Fox that they may not be able to fulfill our order, the county said, well, yeah, we're still good for a while yet, we should be good. So the idea would be, we've approved a rate through Fox Brothers to order salt, but we're probably only gonna realistically be able to get it through the county. The county had also said that usually by February, they get all their salt for the next winter ordered. And what they'd be able to do for us is, we could get like 100, 150 tons of salt ordered, get the bulk rate, and because we don't have a place to store it, the county technically would store it for us and treat it sort of as like a salt bank, you know, where they would say, okay, you have 100 tons, 150 tons, they'll just deliver it whenever we need it. Now that's probably gonna work out pretty good. We did investigate that for this winter, but we called like in March, and they said, well, usually by February they get their order in. So the intent would be for next year. It would be really nice if we had some kind of a salt storage, a bigger storage on our end. But I think we're able to get by as long as the county's able to not really charge you rent for storing salt,
Is
you
the
know?
county, so then does the county lay it down then too?
They could, but what they would really do is they would just put it in a dump truck, haul it to the treatment plant, and then dump it there.
Okay,
And then we would
do
just pull it out on our own.
Put it into
Okay.
our,
Yeah.
So if there's a storm
Spreaders
coming,
and-
you can always plan for
Yep.
it.
yeah.
If we've got straight salt, it's been okay in our garage or in our storage shed. But when there's any kind of mix of salt and sand, and because it's open, it turns into like concrete after 3-4 days. So it's not great.
And that's the
Um,
problem we had with our storm sewers, where for 20-some years, nobody cleaned them out, and we had
Sand and
sand and
and-
concrete down there, and we spent, what, 30,000 jetting them out and cleaning the stuff out?
Not on those. We really, that was the 30 grand was in with like sanitary sewers and
Okay.
stuff too. But we spent quite a bit cleaning them,
Yeah,
and I mean a lot of them were like half full of just sand, and
I guess
then they froze and flooded and.
from the few years I've been here, the sand hasn't been much of a benefit
Yeah.
to the roadways, so.
No, it's not
So-
a benefit to anything.
And so it's really just an update on our snow removal right now. From what I've explained, if that sounds like it's something that you guys like with, I mean, our priority, I guess, right now is we clear the street off. If we do get this other tractor in, we'll have the ability to do a little bit more efficient cleanup to get it off of the curb if we need to. The problem we're gonna run into is a lot of people just throw snow in the street anyway, and
And
that's hard, and for a lot of people, you know, everybody's got a different expectation in the community on how we should be doing, and I know that because I've heard about 15 of them, I think, just this year, and everybody's got good concerns, but it's, realistically, we can't shovel the snow and then truck it out of town in the whole city all the time, you know. Way up north they do, but,
it's Patrick's job to run the city on day by day. And what I said was that public safety was my first concern.
Yep.
Was the roads getting cleaned, and how he cleaned them and how he went about it, managing his people was his job. And it's up to him to do it, to the best of his abilities.
And I guess I would agree with if there's a warmer day where you can clear the roads and get rid of ice,
yeah.
by all
Right.
means, I would take advantage of it, even if it may cause some issues. Now, I think you've already found a way to kind of mitigate some of those issues and
right.
at least
Yep.
help out with the concerns.
Yep.
But public safety is number one.
Yep. So the other item that we have that I'm not really asking you about, but more just reporting to you, is in the past, we're getting off of sand in general. The city had always put out these little boxes on the corners on a couple of the intersections. And what we did was we threw sand in there, and they put them on some intersections. The thought was if something got slippery, people would get out of their car, a cop would get out, throw sand down. What ended up happening is they filled up with garbage, and people would come and grab it and then go take it to their own sidewalks or whatever.
Right.
And they thought it was like salt and sand, but if it was salt and sand, it would turn into a concrete block, so it was just sand. The question or the comment that staff had was, you know, why do we do that? Why do we put those boxes out there? And really, the thought was, well, it looks like we're doing something there. The science, not to get too deep, but if you have an icy intersection and you throw just sand on it,
It's not gonna
the
help you.
idea is it's not really helping at all. It might actually make it worse. And so we didn't put out any of those bins at all this year. And we didn't put any sand out, and I haven't heard any complaints yet, but we didn't put it out, and the school has their own bins. They didn't put out any of their own either. And that's not really by design between the two of us, but just a heads up that we're not throwing sand out there for people. I mean, if there's a good argument that we should have them out there, we would consider it, but I don't know.
I don't see a good argument. The only thing I see is that if the police or a citizen finds a slippery intersection, they should report it so we can get our guys out there to put salt on the intersection and keep it clean.
Yep.
I mean, that's
And we do
that's
have an
just us
on-call
watching
guy,
ours.
you know,
I'd agree with that. I mean,
yeah.
from your perspective, you're responsible for the public areas. You know, the business owners are responsible for their areas and their salt and,
Right.
you know, if there is an intersection, as long as people are bringing the concern so that we can get it corrected right away, that's
Right.
all you would really ask of anybody.
Right.
Yep. So that's kind of where we're at with snow removal. And I know it's in December and it's snowed a couple times already, but we're working on it.
You're doing good.
That's good, I'll pass it on. I know, I'm actually impressed, I think the staff did pretty good today with
I think
what
they
we
did
had to do
excellent
with
today.
rain and that, and then it was raining today too,
Yep.
which,
It just makes for a mess.
It
yeah.
does.
But
There's
it,
not a
and
good.
it looks
it's-
pretty, I mean, we cleared, all of the streets had somebody on it, and
Mm-hmm.
it's gonna cost us less money too, you
Right.
know?
Yeah.
No, it's good.
And we're down a guy, so that's even kind of
That's
more
not good.
impressive, I guess, too,
Yeah,
but.
just make sure you don't work
Well,
them
it's
too
not,
hard.
but, yeah, yeah. Okay,
All right.
that's
so
all I
then-
got on that one, that's
that's
the
it?
bulk of, yeah.
All right, so now we're looking at the yard waste site.
The yard waste site, we did close in November. We learned some things this year, because we put in those blocks. It's, for a quick rundown for Keith, we had, in 2013, the DNR showed up and just said, hey, I'm here to audit your yard waste site, and at the time, I don't have the pictures, but I'll give them next month with a better report. It was basically a forest in there. It wasn't really good. It was just kind of a dump site. And the DNR basically said, well, clean it up or shut it down. And a lot of communities just shut them down. And we spent some money and a lot of effort in getting everything cleared out and starting to turn it into like a better composting site. And there is a rundown of DNR requirements that we have to do, moving material, taking temperatures and things like that. And the DNR did say that next year they'll be back for another audit. They're supposed to come every other year, but they thought maybe it was 10 to 12 years since the last one, which makes sense because it looked like quite a bit of stuff was there.
Yeah.
But I'll give you a better report in January on what we had. We opened it wide open, kept it open all the time, so I'll probably be gauging your thoughts, the committee's thoughts on how do you feel like that worked. We still had a lot of junk, but it's open more often. We
Well,
didn't
I
have
went
people
out there-
battling over the key,
I
you
went
know.
out there when we were doing the Cub Scout removal of leaves, and I was out there like 8 times that day alone.
Mhm.
And it looked pretty clean. I mean, and it is a very heavily used site.
Yeah,
I don't know that we collected any more stuff than we have other years with somebody out there. I
Right.
mean, we didn't get a love seat this year, but we did get a toilet.
we had a toilet, yeah.
But I mean, but we always manage. In other years, we had people that would copy the keys. They would check it out and then they make copies of it and then they'd go on their own.
Yeah.
And so this way we just eliminated that.
Now, do we have any, I guess, do we have any ability to surveil the area?
We're working
cheaply?
on that.
We got a lot of quotes, and basically the
I mean,
couple
even
different companies said you can put a fake camera up, or you could spend 25,000 on a full-on
I'm just thinking something
license plate readers and everything,
a
and
deer camera that can take a picture of a license plate.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things that going forward we were
I'm
looking
sure
at
we'd have to
doing.
post that it's surveilled.
Yep.
but
Right.
As long
Yep.
as we did that, I think
Yep.
we're still
Yep.
good.
but the big thing would be we're going to get audited again May, so we'll have a good report on what we're doing, what we learned, what we need to change, and that's about it for the update. It's closed, and then we'll open it back up next year.
Okay.
Good deal. All right, then your report.
Outside of everything we talked about, which is really the report,
I was gonna say, what do you got
I
left?
did have a couple items. We've talked about, you know, when we dig up City Hall, we dig up the treatment plant, how are the functions gonna work? I've been talking to Thad a little bit, talked a little bit today on it. For City Hall, for sure, it looks like we'll end up saving money and saving time if we're able to just completely move out of the building.
Right.
And so the goal right now on my end, and I've talked to Nick a little bit about this, and I talked to the finance committee about the operational end with City Hall. The goal would be by the end of this month, we have a plan on what we're gonna do, where we're gonna move people, where we're gonna go. We do have some options with City Hall, with the offices. We have options with Public Works, either at the treatment plant or determining whether we need to move them. Thad thinks that they might be able to still work out of the treatment plant, but we'll clarify that through this
Most
month.
of the
yeah.
staff that's there will be able to.
Yeah, and the one thing is just the Public Works office and then the
Right.
SCADA system at City
That's,
Hall.
that's,
and
that's
we'll
the
work
thing
on
we
that.
gotta look at.
Okay.
Do we,
Yeah,
do we own, does the city own the, old elementary school?
the old middle school?
Oh, middle school? No,
Yeah,
that's.
The school
owns
district
that.
does, but I could tell you that the City Hall part, me and the two, Becky and Katrina, it sounds like, I don't mean to break any news, but it sounds like that's probably gonna be an option for us, is the old middle school office. Right
Yeah.
now, it's filled with like old desks though, so they're gonna take a look at that.
It's just a
but-
ready-made available building, that's
Right.
what I asked.
Yep.
Yep, so that's kinda where we're aiming at for that. Now, the police department, I'm not sure where they'll go, but then the Public Works will be, we've got options too, so.
Okay.
We're looking at that. And that's about it for the administrator's report. That was what was in your memo there too.
Yep.
So that's all I've got.
All you got?
Yep,
I have one thing for you.
yeah,
In that, in last month's review of yourself and the chief, we had asked that the committees get together with the job duties
oh,
of the,
sure.
yourself and the chief, and so I would appreciate if you could come to next month's meeting with your job duties as it pertains to Public Works.
Mhm.
Not the administration part with City Hall, but with just Public
Yep.
Works side, so we can, because I think
Yeah.
when we look at your review, in actuality, you should get some from Public Works and some from Finance.
Yep.
And
Yep.
so,
And looking at my official job description that was approved before I started, it doesn't say, it breaks out economic development, personnel, a lot of those things, but it doesn't say anything specifically about Public Works. It just says operations of the city,
Well,
which,
and that should be broken out because you are head of
Yep.
Public Works,
yep,
so,
and the
I-
utilities too.
right,
Yep,
so that,
Yep.
if you could bring something to next
Oh,
month,
yeah.
that we could start looking at it,
yep,
even if we might not finish it,
sure.
I at least wanna
Yeah,
head down that
that'll
road.
That'll work. Is that a closed session type discussion, or we'll take a look at, I'll work with you on what you wanna,
Well, and the other piece of it would just be making sure that we have something on the council's agenda to make sure things are moving forward with
Correct.
that. Because
That's what I wanted from the committees, that
Yep.
we do this.
Yeah.
I had asked the committees.
that would actually be an interesting idea to have each committee evaluate the separate sections to format a complete review.
it would be,
It would
it would
give-
be really interesting.
It would be, it would be.
It would be really interesting.
It would be a way to, I guess, kind of scope it down to the areas.
Well, it-
You really
it-
grade
it-
on the certain areas.
It would, but you have the basic, you have the police department, you have City Hall, and then you have Public Works. Typically, you have 3 different department heads.
Mhm.
We have it broke down just 2. And so therefore, and that's why I was looking at it from here.
Yeah.
Because if we had a Public Works supervisor, he would be giving that to us,
Mhm.
Yeah.
so,
Yep, yeah, we'd take a look at that for sure.
thank you.
Yep.
Is there any other such matters?
No.
No?
No.
Then, the next meeting? Looking at January 12th? Sometime? Maybe 6 to start, and I'll find out what happens.
I'm good with whatever time
Okay.
too, so if you wanna go 5,
Well-
if that works better for you or whatever, I'm open to it.
I had
I don't know
asked
if it
my
works better
boss
for
to
you.
find
Yeah.
out what days they're hiring on, because, geez, there should be a set schedule, so
Mhm.
that I could try to figure my schedule out, but
Yeah,
as of yet, I don't have that. I kinda fly by the seat of my pants.
Mm.
sure.
Well, I'm open, so even if
Okay.
it's shorter notice or whatever,
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm fine with it.
So usually on your end though, your 4:30 is when you're working till?
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay.
that's good to know.
Yep, that is good to know.
Good,
All right then,
all right.
the meeting's set, and there's no other such matters, I guess,
I'll motion to adjourn.
motion to adjourn at 7:26. I'll second it, all in favor?
Aye.
All right.